Hello and welcome to Chainout, a disc golf podcast focused on Edmonton, Alberta, and Canada. I am Jeremy Power, PDGA number 241503. And with me is your illustrious co-host, Darryl Williams, PDGA number 257343. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin.
These intros, Jeremy, they just keep getting funnier and funnier. I don't know where you... I've got no words.
Well, what can I tell you, Darryl? I'm the guy who, when he grew up and he was in class, people said, Jeremy is a very... teachers would say, Jeremy's a very interesting person for me to have in my class. He always finds a way to make us laugh, but he just needs to focus a little more.
Focus on the right thing and not spend all week trying to figure out how you can do another intro.
Well, the thing about this intro was, I'm not going to, I guess what do you call it? Like hang the lead or something like that, they say. But
okay,
we talked last week about Thomas Gilbert a little bit. And we talked about Chantal Badinsky. And I think we said that they're considered disc golf royalty if you're talking about Canadian disc golf players.
Is that what that was meant to be?
That's what that was meant to be, because today we have, how could I not do a regal introduction for the guest like that we're going to have? I'm trying to up our game, man.
Right. Yeah, no, okay. I thought you were doing Peaky Blinders or something.
Oh no, that was my best English type regal accent.
Okay. Now I'm with it.
Now I know you can judge them, so you think I was maybe more from like Snatch or from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or something?
You were a typical Canadian trying to do a British accent. That's all I'll say.
So perfect.
But no, well, I'll give you 7 out of 10. How's that?
Perfect. All right.
Take that.
Well,
it's probably better than me trying to do a Canadian accent, but you're not going to hear that today.
Oh, that'll
but
be a great
anyway.
one.
Welcome to episode 14.
Episode 14.
Yeah, exciting guest we have on again this week. Seems like every week we just have guest after guest after guest.
Yes, and that's because our listeners, even though they haven't told us, we know they may like our voices, but they much more like to hear our guests' voices.
We know they like guests more than they like us, seeing as we keep analyzing the YouTube views and things like that, and we know which episodes do well. We know which episodes maybe don't do so well. So we'll keep bringing you more of what does well, and that's guests. And we have an exciting guest on this week, like you said, Canadian disc golf royalty. I'll leave it there for now, but yeah. So how have you been this week?
I've been great. I've been, just getting excited for the episode. We've been in our roles in the production of episodes. You and I have been trying to establish workflows. Here's that exciting talk that everybody wants to hear, but we've established workflows, and we're trying to make sure we're going to be able to put out episodes every single week and play all the leagues we want to play and play in all the tournaments we want to play this year. So with that, Jeremy's starting to take his hand. There's Jeremy in the third person again. Jeremy's starting to take his hand at putting together some of the shorts. So we'll see if anybody really notices a difference. I know you've got all the skills, but I'm trying to do my part to help, and that's been fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate it. I think it only really I noticed the strain, if you want to call it, if you want to put it that way, the amount of time that it takes when we have issues with the recordings. Last week we had issues with video. In the past we've had issues with audio and everything like that, and those are just a headache to try and sync the audio between 3 different people in 3 different remote locations. But I guess that's what you get when you do an off-site podcast. But yeah, when everything goes smooth, like we had in the beginning episodes, the editing doesn't take that much to do. But when it does, it takes a while. Okay. So I appreciate the fact that you've taken on board the clips this week. I'm not saying that you have to have it all told. We can flip that back and forth whenever. Whoever has the most time, we can split that between duties. But definitely trying to get better at our workflow and trying to slimline this. Like you said, we're doing it as a fun side project, side hobby. Doing something, like we said before, do something you love. You never work a day in your life. So we're doing this as a hobby. When it starts to become a chore, and it gets in the way of other things, then maybe we'll look at that when we come into the summer and when the full season gets into swing. If we're out and about
Oh, and
doing all these
you thought it
leads and
would
doing.
be in the summer is what you thought? Sorry, I'm interrupting. I thought you were talking about when we hit the like MP70 range or something like that. I thought that was when this was going to maybe lose its luster for us.
Oh no, we'll that's when we'll just getting into our stride. That's how long it's going to take us
Oh,
to get this nailed down, I think.
that'll be great. I'll just for those intros, I'll take out my teeth and I'll be like, episode 372. Yes.
Have your own little puppet. Yeah, no. So who knows what's going to happen in the spring and summer? Maybe we might go down to one every 2 weeks. Maybe we'll
Don't
the
talk
quality will.
like that.
Who knows what's going to happen? I'm just preempted. I'm just kind of giving ourselves a barrier. What do they say? Under promise and over deliver.
Over deliver. I'm
There
just
you
going to
go.
over deliver all the time. You
Yeah,
like the
no,
weekly? We're giving you the weekly.
Yeah, you don't have to episode. All right, let's do it. What have you been up to? People don't want to hear our woes of editing. They just want the final product. And this is the final product. So what have you been up to?
Well, what I wanted to say was let's not talk about what I've been up to. I want to talk about the kind of a little bit about social media. And what we found is that we put out posts, we do all these different things. Some of them get a little bit of interest, some of them get a lot of interest. One of the things that we've really noticed is that we've been getting a lot of interaction with Thomas Gilbert. He seems to like a lot of the posts we do. He comments on some of them, and it's really cool getting that opportunity to interact, even if it is on that, I guess, one step removed basis. But one of the posts you did got us some traction.
A little bit of traction, yeah. So I think I'd mentioned it in a previous episode that I had ordered it and I was just waiting for it to come through. We always talk about that what we're all about here is supporting Canadian disc golf, promoting Canadian disc golf, everything to do with Canadian disc golf. And I'm all about supporting Thomas Gilbert as well. I don't have it behind me right now. It's probably in the stack there, but I have a TG Mana disc of his. But I was in need of a new towel. And out of the three that I've seen, there are three choices if you want to go check them out. Thomas Gilbert, Miss Frisbees, and Connor. I forget the third person. I'm going to put his name up on bottom of the screen right now. So I apologize. It's something like Connor McLeod, but it's not Connor McLeod. Right. But it could be like that. But out of the three designs, I decided that I wanted to go with a gorgeous Northern Lights Thomas Gilbert goat towel. Heard a lot of good things about the goat towel. Nice picture on one side and kind of a rough kind of pimpled fabric on the other side for cleaning the snow and the wetness and cleaning your disc and things like that. So yeah, I put a poster of that on my bag next to a cup of Tim Hortons with a Canadian song playing in the background. And I said, can it get more Canadian than this? And yeah, like you said, he liked it and quite a few other people liked it as well.
And that I liked it so much, I got a little bit jealous.
Mm-hmm.
So
never get jealous.
Not jealous in that way. Maybe just jealous in the fact that I need one too, is where it got to. Okay. So just this past week, I'm supporting Ms. Frisbees herself, Chantel Badinsky, and I got the rainbow lion goat towel coming my way. So on a future episode, I'll show that it has been shipped, and I'm patiently checking the mailbox 100 times a day to see if it's arrived.
Yeah, that's awesome. Perfect. Yeah, it was a toss between those two. I mean, like I said, any of the three supporting Canadian disc golf, and Goat Towel, they're a Canadian company as well. So if you're in need of a new towel, you may as well get the best one, and then you may as well just support a Canadian athlete as well.
Yes. Well, the other thing too we talked about last week was we talked about Gander Disc Golf and how they were closing. So just this past Saturday for us at time of recording was Gander's last day being open. I went there because I had a few discs that I had ordered online and picked those up. And then the other thing that had happened was I was walking around the store. It was very busy. Everything that was left was 60% off. A lot of things were being sold, including TVs. It was one of those things, just Calvin working to get as much money as he could in the closing of the store, and it was great to see everyone supporting in that effort and that desire.
Yeah.
So first thing I got a chance to do was talk to Calvin, thank him personally for everything he's done. And on one of the other Canadian podcasts that we listen to, which is the Park Pro one called Northern Flights, they, on their most recent episode, had also talked about Calvin and all the work that he's done, and his support of KC and other Canadian disc golf players and that type
Yeah.
of thing. So that was good. But one of the things, as I was walking by, I went by a shelf, and there was one bag sitting on the shelf, and I said, you know what?
Oh.
My bag's starting to fall apart a little bit. It's probably time for a new bag. So I'm going to take a second and grab it here, Darryl.
Okay. Drum roll, please. Jeremy used to have a Dynamic Discs Trooper backpack.
And now I have a hand-eye bag, which is probably, I want to say, at least 5-6 discs bigger than my other bag.
Yeah. I would say
So,
probably. I would say it's like twice the size.
yes.
Maybe it's not twice the capacity, but it's maybe you add on all the pouches and all the other pockets and things like that. You've upgraded, definitely.
Yeah. Now I really might need to get myself some sort of cart to carry this thing by making it so big.
Yeah, that was the talk that we've said in the past, that we were thinking that when we were going to go and upgrade, that we were going to go to the Transit Zuka cart. But in the meantime, when like we said before, you don't want to be the vultures picking over the remains of the Thor and things like that. I don't think that was the case for us. We've supported him during the time that he was open and things like that. But when you see a bag that's 60% off, and it's the last one on the shelf, and it's black and white, so it goes with your birdie beads as well. I mean,
it does.
It was kind of calling out your name, really.
Yes, it certainly was, and I'm super excited with it. I got a chance to play a quick 9 holes this week after work at Langholm with the extra light, and wore that around, and it fits nice on the back, and it feels good. It's got that extra padding between my back and the back of the backpack. So
nice, yeah. And maybe that's all you needed. Maybe that'll just prolong your season. Your Zuka cart need.
my cart
maybe that'll
free.
maybe you'll be cart free for another 2 seasons or so. Having the nicer backpack, maybe that'll help you.
Yeah. So that was an exciting thing. So I'm happy about that this week as well.
Yeah, it's good. While you were talking about socials, we always leave it to the end, but saying that we're getting traction on social media, we're very heavily on Instagram. That's where a lot of our posts go up. We also post the daily clips on YouTube as well and TikTok. So we may as well give those a shout out right here and now. So while you're listening to this part of the episode, why don't you just pause it right now? Just pause it and leave a like if you're watching it on YouTube. Just hit the like button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take any time out of your day. Just hit the like button right now. Give us extra likes. We like likes. I like likes. Do you like likes, Jeremy?
I like likes as well. And I would say if you're listening like I do, when I listen to the podcast, I'm usually doing it on the way to work or on the way home from work, and I'm listening on Apple Podcasts, or if it's Spotify, there's a spot there where you can give us a review. And if you like what we're doing, give us a 5-star review, and that also helps us as well.
Yeah. I rate reviews. Do you rate reviews?
You rate the so someone does a review, so they're rating something, but then you rate the person's rating that they did?
No, I was trying the alliteration of the I likes and I rate reviews.
Oh, gotcha.
Because if you were going to
rate reviews, I was going to rate your rating of a review.
Rate us on the Apple Podcast. Rate us on Spotify. Leave a comment. Thank you to everybody who left a comment with the secret word from last episode. Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch last episode, and then leave a comment. Maybe stick around to the end of the episode, and there might be another comment that we'll ask you to put in, and maybe one day we'll have something to give away. Who knows? But like the video, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Apple. Head over to Instagram, follow us over there as well. Like I say, always putting out daily content, and it's free. We don't charge anything for this, Jeremy.
No, we don't.
I know, it's amazing. Follow us everywhere at chainout podcast, and on Instagram at _podcast. There you go. We've done the social media shout out. But I would just like to shout out one little person quickly. Well, not a little person. But I'll do a little shout out to a person. I just wanted to shout out Colton that I met at the Hills. He wasn't a subscriber, but I met him. I've seen him there a few times, so hopefully I convinced him to listen or watch our little podcast that we have here. So if you're watching, welcome, Colton.
Yes. If you're listening, thanks,
There you go.
Colton. And Darryl says he's played with you out at the hills, and I'm excited to maybe get out there and play with you as well.
There you go.
Well, Darryl, I think it's time.
Drumroll, please.
Let's give the people what they're wanting, what they're waiting for.
This is it. We're enough faff now, Jeremy. Let's get on with the episode. Let's get to what
rid
the
of
meat and
fluff.
potatoes.
People say keep those intros short. That was as short as we get. So here we go. Our guest today is considered Canadian disc golf royalty.
No, sorry. You're gonna have to interrupt you. Give the people what they want, Jeremy. They want the deep, dark announcer voice.
All right. Do I need the hand for it, or can I just do it deep dark?
No,
is the
you
hand
can just
part
do
of it? Oh, okay.
Well, it looks good, but I don't think you need it.
All right. Here goes. Our guest today is considered Canadian disc golf royalty. Her PDGA number is low, 5 digits. I kind of did that right. She has been pushing women's disc golf forward every way she can since she started playing. She TDs tournaments, including one of Canada's most popular A tiers. She sits on the board of her local club. She has brought pros to Canada with her tournaments and is our first guest from British Columbia. If you're connected to the Canadian disc golf scene, you probably already know who I'm talking about. But if not, here she comes. From Kamloops, we are ecstatic to bring to the show Carrie Neal. Welcome, Carrie.
You guys are
welcome
so
to
sweet.
the podcast.
Thank you.
What an intro, hey Carrie.
I know it's hard to hear stuff about yourself, right? So you're kind of like, so yes, that was very sweet. Thank you.
Well, as you could tell, even there, I had a little bit of nerves because we really are so excited to have you on the show.
Aw, thanks.
So I can clip that if you want. Here. You can download it and put it as your ringtone.
Right? It's awesome. Yeah.
It can be your theme music as you walk around. So how are you doing?
That's right. I'm good. Just into the throes of TCO, right? Like I know it's only beginning of February and it's in June, but honestly, planning started before Christmas and has just been, January's been hitting the ground running. So yeah.
That must be a hard time to try and get an event starting when you have to kind of get Christmas out of the way, and then as soon as Christmas is done, then it's like, okay, what have I got to focus on now?
Well, we wrapped up our title sponsor before Christmas, and now it's just a matter of like it's like a chess game for a while, and then it's like Jenga. It's like you got to try to make it all work, and then it all comes together at once. So you got to slot it all in and put it together, right? So, we've got Park Pro locked down; they're coming. We've got the city of Kamloops locked in with everything they're providing. Tourism Kamloops is on board, PDGA. So now it's just finding the sponsors for the a little bit more added cash and all the little things, right? Like Chad Smoliak is the other TD, and he's the brains. Like I often tell people, if it wasn't for Chad, my brains would melt out my ears. He takes care of everything behind the scenes. If it's tour manager, disc golf scene refunds, he's the one that does with our maintenance coordinator and their team for the courses. They do the layouts, the pars, the tee pads, who's doing what, who's playing what tee pads, what the pools are, what courses they're playing. That's all Chad. That has nothing to do with me. Okay. I'm just like, sounds good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So we complement each other really well. So forward facing, I take care of like meetings with the city, meetings with Tourism Kamloops and other sponsors. I coordinate with our fundraising coordinators. I'm doing the behind the scenes, like I'm booking the karaoke and helping take care of trivia night and players pack building out and stuff like that. So just more of the hands-on day-to-day tasks, and then he does more of the behind the scenes technical tasks. So I think it really helps us run smoothly.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's a really big undertaking to get it all done, and we have a lot more questions for you on that coming up later. So we're not going to spoil the surprises for you, Carrie. We got a lot of questions for you.
That's okay. I'm here for it. My glass is full.
There you Yes, I guess we should mention that.
Yes.
So, if anybody doesn't know, if you're not already following Carrie on Instagram, do you want to give yourself a shout out, Carrie?
Sure. Discs and wine on Instagram. My two big passions in life.
There you go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All
Cheers. Get the episode started right.
right. Mm-hmm.
So, Carrie, you're out in Kamloops, and right now, we're in Edmonton. We've been getting kind of a mix match of our winter here, but it's actually worked out really well. We've had a chance to play a lot of rounds. Are you getting that type of winter out there right now too?
Yeah, we were really fortunate. We haven't had a lot of snow. We actually probably should have touched some wood at one point because up until about 2 weeks ago, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, we had really nothing on the ground. Like it
Oh,
was beautiful. And then we got 9 or 10 inches in one night, just dumped on us.
what?
And then that melted down and we compressed down to about 4 inches. And then we got probably about another 2 inches. And then that's really all we have. I was just down in Valley Bottom today and, where they've plowed the snow and it's piled up and where it's been crusted like the freeze thaw. But other than that, it's really Kamloops got away really good this year. We did have some really cold weather though, like December, I think it was in December. We had 2 or 3 days where we got like really cold, -25, -27. And then, but really above normal. Kind of worrisome, actually.
While we're talking about weather, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this, Carrie, because it's come up on the podcast before.
Of course.
How are you with the thinking? If it gets down to -20, -30, would you rather it stay at -30 so you know what you're dealing with every day, as opposed to what you just mentioned about the warming up with the temperatures and then you get the freeze thaw?
You know what? It doesn't bother me because I'm 24th year of disc golf, so I'm a fair weather golfer now. I don't golf in the winter, so I'm okay with it. I'd rather be in the gym or putting in the garage. I don't disc golf. I don't bundle up and ribbon up. I did that for a lot of years. So yeah.
Right.
I'm
so you do the off-season prep then is what you're telling me. Is that right? So that you're ready for this season.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't think there's any benefit really to bundling up into like 17 layers and heading out to the course and throwing 100 feet shorter than you usually throw and digging and looking for your disc. I don't think when it's -20 out, can you really keep your body warm enough to prevent injury? I don't know. Like
that's a fair point.
My muscles get so cold that I don't think it's right to be throwing that hard, or just go putt indoors in your garage. Practice your 20 footers. They're important.
Well, what you've done, Carrie, is you've given us a great question for the next time. Last week we had a Tristan Piska on, who is a physiotherapist or is a physiotherapist. So we didn't even ask about that, Darryl. What were we thinking? We need Carrie to consult with us before we talk to our guests.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go over the show notes. Old. You know what? I love it because we were the only ones. Like there was maybe 15 of us in Kamloops that golf. So we did it all. Like we went out and shoveled tee pads and played year round. And now I'm older and I don't do that. But this new era of disc golfers that came in, especially through the pandemic, they're just so keen. And I love seeing it. Like they're shoveling tee pads and they're throwing and I'm like, yeah, you guys wait, give yourselves 15 years. You won't be out there.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, with that, Carrie, one of the things that we do on our show is we like to give you a chance to tell us about how you got into disc golf. So in two efforts here, one, I don't want to be like, how'd you get into disc golf? Because that's just kind of lame saying it that way.
Okay.
And two, I want to give you some time to think about it. So with that, I'm going to give you a possible disc golf origin story for you. So it's like a superhero type origin story, but for disc golf. So I came up with an origin story that is fit for a legend. So maybe you were not born, but actually sculpted from clay by your goddess mother and given life as an Amazonian. The Greek gods of disc golf bestowed upon you epic disc golf skills that you have used to make an impact in all aspects of the game every day since. Now, that may not be exactly how you got into disc golf, but why don't you tell us?
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, let me catch my breath. I got into disc golf as my husband and I were young parents, and we had a 2-year-old that was out of the stroller, out of the backpack carrier. You know, we were avid backpackers and hikers and mountain bikers before we had our daughter. And once you have kids, you kind of got to fit them into the lifestyle. So they were in the backpack carrier, she was in the jogging stroller, and then that age where they want to get out and explore. And all of a sudden, you know, a 5-kilometer walk becomes a 1-kilometer walk inside the same time frame, because you got to stop and smell the roses and the flowers and pick dandelions. So we were like, we need a sport, we need something. And we happened to see it on our local TV station after the local news,
Really?
or on, actually as on the local news one night. And we thought, that's kind of cool. We play beach frisbee. We throw whatever the Discraft big disc was. So we headed out with the big beach frisbees, and lo and behold, found out really quickly that you can't play like that. I think this is a lot of people's story, right?
Yeah,
so
it's very similar.
Onto the internet we went discovering the world, and ordered a bunch of drivers and putters and things that looked good, and then went back up the next day to go for a walk on the course, and just kind of, we looked it up online. So it obviously 24 years ago, the internet was not super new, but it wasn't as advanced as it is now. And so we went and walked and kind of like took a look at what was there and what we would be doing in the tee pads. And we bumped into this guy, Brent Ross, and he was selling discs out of the trunk of his car. So we were like, we can get discs sooner than 3 weeks. This is perfect. So we bought some discs and we were hooked. That was 2000. And in the spring of 2000, that fall, my husband played and I volunteered in the provincial championships that we were hosting in Kamloops. And that's where it started, and it hasn't stopped. So
awesome.
24th year. Yeah.
So 24 years ago. Oh, go ahead, Darryl.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's kind of strange, because most of the origin stories that we have people getting into disc golf, a lot of them tend to be, well, I tried it, you know, I had a friend that liked it and I just didn't get it, you know, went out another time. And then there's that kind of that spark moment where they're like, oh, I get this now and I'm good at it. But yours was kind of just like from day one, picked up a disc and you were hooked straight off.
Loved it. Yeah. And I think because, Rose Hill at the time was a decommissioned baseball diamond. So if you've ever been to Rose Hill, where it is, there's a big grassy area out there right now. And when you pull up right kind of where the lean-to is with the picnic table, that used to be a big chain link backstop. And there was a home plate there. And there was this huge pile of red shale. And so my daughter would play in it. And as she grew up at the disc golf course, we'd take the bucket and the pail. And we used to be able to play literally around the tennis court, hole 1, hole 2, hole 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And we could see her. So we would do that. And so it was just, we liked it a lot because we were athletic and we threw Frisbee. But I think too, we loved it because we could go every day. We didn't have to pay, and our daughter could come, which was, you know, so you take what you can at the time to stay active, and then you meet the people, and you just, it just rolls from there. And then you discover how big it really is. Right. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, Carrie, when I was probably about that same time in 2000 or so, I was out visiting a buddy in the Vancouver area, and he was just starting to get into disc golf, but I was kind of mountain biking at the time. So that was what I was there to do. But he took me out and we played around at disc golf. And, you know, I remember I enjoyed it, but it just didn't flip the switch at that moment. And I so wish it did, because I would be in the seat that you're, well, in the same situation where we're like, I've been playing for 24 years now, but it took till later for that. But 24 years ago in Kamloops, what was the disc golf scene like? Was there lots of people in it at that point, or?
No. So literally for, so the last Canadians we held 2013. So for 13 years, it was literally the same 8 people that served the board of directors. And then, you know, maybe 100 or 200 people, like 300 people maybe on a regular basis. And then it was more of a destination, like small and mighty, I guess, is what we were back then. We hosted Canadians 3 times. You know, I brought top touring women to Kamloops. we had a premier course is what we had. We had a city that believed in what we were doing and believed in build it and they will come. So our city has been on board since day one. And that's why we've hosted all these huge tournaments and been so fortunate to be able to grow the way we have. So yeah, it wasn't a big scene, but like I said, small and mighty.
Right.
You mentioned about bringing top FPO players to Canada. Were there many women disc golfers at that time?
No.
No. You were the one of the first ones, the pioneer.
When I started playing disc golf, there was a gal named Leanne Fulton out of Vancouver, Michelle Wilson, who is also out of Vancouver, Becky Campbell, and forgive me, I can't remember her last name. Tara was her first name. And those were the women that were playing on a regular basis, and mostly because their partners played.
Right.
And in Kamloops, there's myself and Tracy Anderson as regulars. We ran ladies' nights for a decade, where sometimes we were the only people that showed up. So yeah,
you stuck with it.
I did. That's what fueled the fire, right? So
yeah.
And what do you think was what was about that women were just not coming to league at that time or not getting into it? Was it just not a knowledge about the sport at the time, or?
No, I think so I'll lay all my cards on the table and let the haters come out. Disc golf is very much like traditional golf. It was a man's sport back then. And I still golf today with many of the men back then that were like, yeah, that's great. You play, but I don't want my wife to play, or I don't want my girlfriend to play. This is my time. This is when I come out to play. Like, there was definitely an attitude of it was guys' time. So, and that wasn't just here in Kamloops. That was everywhere I went. I experienced it in Alberta. I experienced it all over BC, and right here in my hometown. So, there was a time inside the sport where I've been active, that it just wasn't, women just weren't, it wasn't inclusive, plain and simple.
Yeah. So
I think I've heard you mention before about sometimes when you would be put on a card and then other people on the card that would refuse to play on your card if you were on with them.
Yep. Or roll their eyes, or they're like, oh God,
yeah.
Okay, I gotta play with her. Yeah. It's very common. Very common. Yep. And like, when I say very common, I mean like up until like, at least in Kamloops, even 10 years ago, there was even people out there that were just like, oh God, she's here. Like, and not just me, any woman that would walk up. They stopped saying it with me because I started putting my foot down. I've watched women come into the sport in Western Canada and leave the sport and never return, just because they've been made to feel unwelcomed.
Wow.
Well, and that's the one thing that...
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I'm not just unwelcomed by like an average player. Like, I've watched like myself being treated by provincial PDGA reps like as an afterthought. So it's like, it's education, but definitely yeah. And I'm not one to be quiet. I'm not like, even like I always say at work, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make a difference. And in disc golf, I definitely want to have friends and allies. But if it means I have haters that I can make a difference and make for someone to be included, then I have haters, I guess. I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
You still sleep at night.
I sleep at night. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is that I don't think women's disc golf would be where, at least as you said, with people like Darryl and I in the sport, where we've come in after COVID and we've come in this boom and this, at least with the way we approach it, much more inclusive. We want to play with whoever's willing to play. And I hope that's a general transition. But if it wasn't for people with voices like yours to move it that direction, it might not be there. Are you finding now that it's more inclusive than it was, or have you seen a big jump, or is there still a lot of work to be done?
No, you know what? It's definitely more inclusive. There is still work to be done. And the only reason there's work to be done, I think, is because the growth the growth happened really fast. Like if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't know if disc golf would be where it is right now. You just have to look at the PDGA numbers, right? And that's people who joined the PDGA. Think about the people who didn't that took up disc golf. And they joined in an era of where we still had the old school disc golfers from the 80s, early 90s that are older. And then you have that middle group, kind of like my club. Then you have this new era of disc golf. And if you don't have someone educating these guys and saying something when it happens, yeah, there's still work to be done. But honestly, the people that I've seen, the clubs I've worked with, the TDs I've worked with, very inclusive. And maybe it's because it's me. Maybe it's because I'm not afraid to say, hey, that's not okay. But what I'm doing right now for women's disc golf in this point in time in disc golf isn't anything special. Like there's women out there doing way more than I'm doing and doing it well. And it excites me. What I did 20 years ago for women in disc golf was groundbreaking, and I will continue to do what I need to do and be a voice where I need to be to not let that diminish. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that too, then are there things that you think that, say, players like ourselves or other, because I think if we put it all on women to advocate for women, then that's only half of it, right? Like we need everybody in the community to make sure that we're being as inclusive as we can for whether it's for women, whether for anybody of any who wants to play disc golf should be able to play disc golf and be included in that. Is there things that you could suggest for people that can help to make it more inclusive for women to help break some of those last remaining barriers?
I think just education. I think there's just, and for every one guy out there that, and I don't want to, there's no paintbrush out here. I'm not painting broad strokes. For every one guy out there that's kind of like, oh, what did you do bringing your wife? This was supposed to be a guy's day to golf. I think there needs to be 10 guys saying, dude, if she wants to golf, she can golf. Like, I think that needs to happen. And I think it doesn't mean you have to be an ass about it or you don't have to be mean about it. I think, just saying like, if you don't want to play with her, she can be on my card. I'll be her doubles partner. Or I think it's just making sure that when a woman shows up to the course, that you shut down the people that are disgruntled about it.
Yes.
It's just that simple. And I think it's tough when it's a friend, right? Or if it's a bunch of guys show up and they're like, oh, they get out of the car. Oh, fuck, he can't go anywhere without his wife. Just a comment like that is enough to drive a woman away, because it's intimidating to be around 7 or 8 guys. And you're like, do they all feel like this? Why did he bring me? He told me it'd be okay if I came. Like, so and that's what I'm saying. I've seen women join the sport super excited and never come back.
Right.
So
well, I think what I'm... Go ahead, Darryl.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think fortunately from my perspective, I think it's fortunately is that doesn't kind of ring true for me, because that's not what I'm seeing out there on the course. And maybe it might be an area thing, or it might be, the friend group that I hang around in, that I've never seen anything where any female hasn't been welcomed, and we always see it, even like we say with the guests that we have on the show. They're promoting it. We're getting them on the podcast. We're promoting it as well. Everyone that we've talked to is receptive of everything that we're doing. And it just seems like it's, a thing that is in the past and that isn't a thing anymore. But obviously, it's still out there, and people just need to be aware. And hopefully, like you said, for every one that's negative, there are 10 people that can stand up and say, no, that's not right, and drown out those voices.
And I agree. And a way that you can judge just how inclusive it is when a women's event is held in Edmonton or in Calgary or Kamloops or wherever you are listening, how many men are volunteering to help? Yeah, you want them at the course. Yeah, they're included. Yeah, we want them here, but they can do their own thing when it comes to a women's tournament. Be a voice, stand up, go out and spot, go out and pick up a bag, be a caddy, do check-in. So the female tournament director can mingle with the players and greet them. Like, those things speak volumes. So, and I'm not saying about you guys personally, I'm just saying in general to the
No.
community, it's easy for you to say, hey, yeah, I'm cool if women play. Oh, it's a women's event. I'm going to go out to this other course and play that weekend. Well, why wouldn't you just give that weekend up and support them?
That's
So,
such a good point.
I was thinking
absolutely.
that same thing, Jeremy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know
Well,
It
Kristen
makes total
Swirls
sense
has
as well.
Kristen Swirls, I think, has an event coming
Mhm.
up, right?
She's
How
up
many
first.
men?
She's up first.
Yeah.
She's up first. How many men are going to step up and spot? Like when I was in Cranbrook for Crush in 2022, we were flooded. Like the men were running the raffles, they were running the check-in, they were running, giving out, like passing the prizes to the tournament director, they were spotting, they like, it was insane. Like we had so many men out there doing so many great things for the sport. It was just awesome to see the support. I had Crush here, we had guys coming out, we had families coming out, the moms were playing and the sons and husbands were helping. And I think it's really important. um, it's it's very easy to say I'm okay with women playing. It's a little harder to give up your time to support women playing, and that's what speaks volumes. That's the true show of how much you really want them there. Does that? I guess.
Oh,
Yeah. No,
I'm not calling
it
anybody
speaks
out in
volumes.
particular. I'm just saying from personal experience and noticing the necessity of needing men, especially, to walk the walk, just don't talk the talk.
well,
I
Carrie,
felt like that was just a light bulb moment that you just mentioned there, because when you were saying it, in my mind, I was thinking, well, it's a women's event, so they don't want that masculinity involved in it because they don't want, oh, the men are here thinking that we can't look after the event. Like that was my mindset. But then when hearing you say that you want men involved because it shows that we're supporting, I looked at it from a different point of view and I can understand now, oh, actually we should be volunteering. And it's not like we're trying to take over. It's not like we're trying to say you can't run your own event. We're not saying any of that. It's just being involved and doing whatever needs to be done. Like you said, picking up litter, spotting, and anyway, anything that happens just to make the tournament run successfully.
And the best thing to do is just reach out to the female TD and say, I want to give up my weekend and help you out. What can I do?
well,
Rather than be
Carrie,
like, I'm here, I'll do that. No, that's not that, so yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
well, I was going to say is that just this part of the podcast alone, we could just cut it here and we've done something great in my mind, because
absolutely.
I like, you've taken me already on a roller coaster of emotions, because when you were talking about the feeling of what was still going on and that there's still people out there that way, I was frustrated. I was getting upset in my mind here because, as Darryl said, is a lot of times with our experience, it has been very good, but to know that's happening, I'm like, oh, that angers me. And then as you said, and just Darryl, you said it with the light bulb, as you said, oh, why don't you guys volunteer for She's Up First? I'm like, every one of our male listeners could easily do that and join in and be part of that. And we've had Kristen on the show and we love all the FPO players that we've gotten to interact with. And I'm like, you're so right. What better way for us to show our support than to support the tournament? So I really want to thank you for that.
I know there's a lot of FPOs out there and a lot of female TDs are like, we don't need that. But I encourage those women to turn the tables and feel empowered and to ask the men in your club or the men like yourselves to come out and volunteer. I'm not asking you to help me. I'm not asking you to run my tournament, but I'm letting you know that I need spotters. I need runners to take water to my spotters. I need someone to help at check-in. It'd be great. And what it does for the female players showing up to see a man there doing that task is that they were willing to give up their time to be there to support you as a player. And, I watched the U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championships, which is a perfect example. I've been to the U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championships, and there's tons of men out there, husbands and club members, and it's exactly what they're doing. They're taking care of the course, they're spotting, they're mowing, they're checking in, they're asking you if you need help. You look lost. Can I help you find your way? What are you looking for? And it felt really nice to be supported by men at a tournament that was for me. So it was very cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Kristen needs help. Kristen, if you're listening, God, I'm not ever saying that. I love you so much. But yeah, I'm saying that all hands on deck to volunteer and spot, especially, is a really cool thing.
Yeah, I know. Maybe this is the wrong way to look at it. I don't want it to sound wrong, but we should be volunteering no matter who it is. I mean, obviously we want to
Exactly.
promote, it shouldn't
Yep.
be, one or the other. It's just, if you want to promote disc golf, volunteer. It doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
where it is. If you can volunteer any weekend, then it benefits the sport in general.
Oh, for sure, right? And but it's often easy to say, it's my buddy's event, so I'll show up early and help him set up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help him. I had a guy tell me one time when I was planning the Canadian Women's Disc Golf Championships pre-COVID, the before times. And I said, I could really use you out here. Like, this is, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to travel that far just to spot it. I don't want to do menial jobs. If you got something great I can do, then I was like, you know what? It's not about ego. I don't need your help.
No,
Thanks
it's
anyways.
not about you at that. Like,
Exactly.
he's totally making it
Yeah.
about himself. I'm like, that's not why I asked you to come out
Totally.
here.
Exactly. Right. So it's okay. I did it. We could have done it without him. So yeah.
So that's some of the things that could be worked on there. What are some of the, like you mentioned, seeing the more volunteers at the tournaments and that? What are some of the kind of the bigger highlights that you've seen in the FPO divisions and that, and maybe even at the TCO or the Crush? Like, seeing more tournaments, is that part of what is leading the way to a better women's disc golf scene?
I think any tournament that's being hosted that doesn't make women an afterthought is a success. And what I mean by afterthought is not opening up registration with as many women's divisions offered as possible. And I'll say the same about all the underserved, the senior divisions as well. Like I'm FP50 and it's not offered very often. I just want the opportunity to sign up and see if another woman will sign up. If not, I understand you got to collapse my division. But I'll never beg you to give me my division. I'll just opt not to play.
Right.
So I know that sounds, if there's some men might be listening going, oh, here we go again, or whatever. It's like we offer all these men's divisions because we see lots of men come out and play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So FA3 is like one of the biggest divisions it'll fill because that's where all your beginners are going to go. You're so remiss not to offer FA3, FA2, collapse them. If they don't fill, collapse them. It's okay. These women get it. They know if they don't have people to play with that they've got to move on to a different division or get a refund. Like, they know that, right? So why not offer it? We offer it to the men. We offer MA4, MA3, MA2, MA1. We go on and on and on and on and offer the men everything, but we give the women the option of FPO, FA1, FA2. Well, what about the 40-year-old pros and the 50-year-old pros, the 40-year-old amateurs, the 50-year-old amateurs? Like, let's offer those divisions. And that is one of the biggest steps. And don't cap their divisions. Like at TCO, we don't cap divisions, we cap pools. And then I open registration up for women early. So literally, if 200 amateur women would have registered in that first week, sorry, boys, you're out of luck. I've just filled the largest women's tournament in outside of the US WDGC, right? So, but that's what we do. We cap our pool. We put our men's and women's divisions in the pools, and we open up registration early for women. This year we didn't for the senior divisions, just because like the MAs and MPs, 50s, 60s, 70s, just because we didn't see them fill. Like historically, they're not filling. So when registration opens up, there'll be places for them. But for the women and juniors, absolutely. And that's something so easy that every tournament director could do. Making sure you have enough bathrooms. Like, this is the thing. Women will come out and play if they feel like, number one, they're not an afterthought. And number two, they don't have to ask for basic human decency, like a place to pee. And, I'll bring it up and you guys can edit it out if you'd like. You got to think about the number of women you have playing and the monthly issue that they have. Women need a place. They need a bathroom. In the heat of the summer, in the cold of the winter, it doesn't matter what it is. Basically, if you've got 50 women at your event, a quarter of them need the decency of having a place to go and take care of Mother Nature. It's something that's we can't help it. And that is something that's not thought of. Male TDs don't think about that. They don't think about extra bathrooms for women. They don't think about the fact that just don't pop a squat in the bush. There's other things we need to take care of. So it's important. And, and just really, again, my biggest, I can't say it enough, don't make us an afterthought. And you'll see women show up.
How do you think, like, not necessarily what are you doing, because I don't want to put all the responsibility onto you and yourself,
sure.
but
I'm okay.
like how is there a way, like what way can we get out there to these male TDs to make those thoughts? Like, because if they're not being told those things, maybe it's just things that don't enter their heads. But like, is there, like, I'm sure there's not, but is there something like a training program for TDs? Like, I know that every TD probably just learns from the TD before them, sort of thing, or you pick it up as you go. But it's almost like there should be a script of, okay, these are the things that you need to think about.
And there should be. And I think what it is making men comfortable with talking about it. Like, Jeremy or Darryl, you could say to your guys that are, did you guys get an extra outhouse? Because, we got 40 women and they're going to need an extra outhouse. They don't, like being okay having that conversation with another guy, because the reality is our sport is male dominant. Our TDs are male dominant. Like, I think right now in Canada, I'm the only female running A tiers. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, and it's good. It's not going to be like that for long. That's my hope. I hope there's more women out there that'll get out there and do that. But having those men feel comfortable saying to a man, like, yo, you need more outhouses than that. Like, let's think about this. Because women aren't going to say it. They're just not. They're not made comfortable enough yet to say it. Not every woman's as outgoing as I am or outspoken as I am, and they'll feel uncomfortable. I actually remember, this is quite a few years ago, a girlfriend of mine dropped out of a tournament and lost her registration fee because of where we were going, and she got her period, and she knew that she wouldn't be able to manage it on the course that weekend. So she dropped out because of the amenities. So, it's, I don't ever want to hear that. And it kind of sucked. And I had a backup plan for her, but she felt uncomfortable. It wasn't her thing. So I was like, okay. So men just got to be comfortable. It's a fact of life. Like, it's no different than talking about anything else that comes up. If you have daughters, I don't know if you have daughters. It's
I do not, but whether it's going grocery, I'm the one who does the grocery shopping and everything else. And
but even if you don't have daughters, if you have sons, like, boys need to talk about this stuff. It's a fact of life. It's not anything gross, but it happens, and women need bathrooms.
Yep. And I was just going to say with that, Carrie, and if I need to buy some of those supplies on the list, then those supplies are on the list. That's just part of what it is, right? It's just knowing those things.
Something I did for TCO right from the get-go was at each course director had an amenity tote. And in that tote, I had women's sanitary stuff. I had everything. I had gloves, toilet paper, Lysol spray, sunscreen, after sun, hand lotion, Kleenex, whatever. But I also included women's sanitary napkins, tampons, and that was in there because you never know when an emergency is going to hit. And all my course TDs are men, and they're looking through it, and I was like, you never know who's going to come and ask. Be comfortable with that. And that's a tote I give at every course. The course director takes it with them. And if you need anything from an ibuprofen to a sling, I got you covered.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, another thing we learned, Darryl and I, about playing with Darryl playing with his girlfriend, me playing with my wife, was also too is the women in your life, making sure that they're playing on their terms. And we both learned, we did have to learn it, but we learned it very, very quickly because my wife and I, we like to go for a walk and we'll go grab a coffee and she'll want to come to play so that we can spend time together because she knows it's a passion. It's something that I enjoy. So she has an aerobie. She has a glitch. She throws those. She doesn't keep score. She doesn't want to she doesn't want tips. She doesn't want anything like that. She just wants to go out and spend time with me. And I'm like, that's the involvement you want, that is perfect, because I enjoy it too. And making sure not to go, well, hun, if you held it this way, and if you just did this
Exactly.
cross step, and
Yep.
we learned that quick. And I think, Darryl, you've learned the same thing, have you?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I was on that side of the fence. I was, well, if you throw it like this, you might, until we got to the point where I could tell that, yeah, I shouldn't be saying these things, and it was making the round not enjoyable. So yeah, no, I've definitely learned the hard way.
And so no unsolicited advice. Please
Right.
never
Yeah.
say, guys listening, hey, that was a great throw for a girl. No, that was just a great throw. That was just a
Yeah.
great throw. Myself, even with women, I'll say to them, I'm not gonna give you any advice unless you want it or ask. Like, I don't
Right.
give women, as a woman, unsolicited advice. I don't
Right.
give it to a guy. Guys don't give it to a guy. But for some reason, men feel this need to turn to a woman and be like, oh, if you just would have put your foot here and lifted your arm like this, your putt would have went in. And it's like, why don't you tell Buddy, who missed the same putt, but they don't, right? So just, I always say, if you want some help, let me know. Or if it's like really, really bad, and to a guy, I will too be like, can I give you a little tip? And they'll be like, and I'll be like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm here. Let me know. But I also won't say that to someone brand new that I've never met. But if it's like, sixth, seventh, eighth time I've been out and I see this repeated behavior and they're frustrated with it, like they keep missing right on their putts and they're frustrated and it's something I've seen, I'll say to them, hey, I've played enough with you. Can I give you a tip on your putting? But I never just say, if, and I think you guys are doing the right thing because we have a woman here in Kamloops, Elizabeth DeVries. And when I met her, she was tagging along with her husband to the course and, kind of like, oh, the whole family's going. So I guess I'll go, and a couple discs and throwing whatever. And that was in 2021. I think I met her. She's now running get in, get out, get rated C tiers. She's taken on one of our BC Women's Series C tiers. She's doing a women's weekend of like play and clinics in May. She has taken over my Valkyries League for this year. Like, she is so keen and so bought in, but because she was able to experience the sport organically with the people around her, with no one shoving advice down her throat. And she just was able to get excited about it because she was able just to see her own frustrations and want to get better. And she came out to Valkyries League and she enjoyed the camaraderie with being with other women. And now she's playing in every tournament. She has total FOMO. She's in every tournament she can be in. So it's pretty cool. Like, just to see this woman go, I look at her and I'm like, that was me 20 years ago. Like, it's very cool.
Yeah.
I admire her so much. So, but again, a woman that just went out with her husband and wasn't forced or told what to do, just figured it out. Yeah. And she's addicted.
That's awesome.
So thank you guys for saying that. I really appreciate it. And any guys listening out there, learn.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And when we were doing all of these origin stories and that too, Carrie, even with the guests we've had on, Darryl and I at first were under the impression that everybody was similar to us, where it was, oh, we got into this, we started a little bit, and then all of a sudden we bought a bunch of discs, and we bought a bag, then we bought more discs, and now all of a sudden we're running a podcast, and we just thought that's how everybody got into disc golf, right? But then what we learned was, just last with Tristan and then also with Kristen, is that there is also the slow burn disc golfer. And the more that you can allow that person to take it at the speed they want to take it, the better chance it seems that they're going to get hooked. Because Kristen said she was playing with Tim and it was fine. It was something to do. And then eventually, what was it, Darryl, 3 years or something like that?
Yeah.
Before it finally really bit her. And then now look at her, right? She's running tournaments. She's playing FPO. And
it was the same story with Tristan. He was out with his brother and he was trying to teach him how to throw and he just couldn't get it and it wasn't sinking in. The same with Kristen. Tim was maybe trying to give her some tips and it just wasn't sinking in. And then all of a sudden, on her own terms, decided, oh, okay, I'm just going to throw it the way I want to throw it. And then it kind of, like you say, you just got that bug and then it went from there. Don't force it on people that maybe don't want to have it forced on them.
Exactly. And that's why we have so many recreational golfers that you just, you see all these, like, we'll go out to Mac Island on a Saturday in July. Every tee pad's got somebody on it, but you never see those faces at tournaments or at club events, or, there's just, like you said, you got those slow burn recreational players that are figuring it out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to still stay on the women's side of it, but get a little bit more to kind of what I've heard about the FPO side. And what I've found is that one of the things is in a lot of the FPO tournaments right now is they'll be offered, but if a FPO player is looking to improve their game and maybe has eyes on the tour or something like that, they're struggling because they'll enter a tournament, and in that tournament they've got the same layout design as the MPO and the other mixed players, and as a result their ratings and such are getting propagated, and whether it's their sponsorships, if they're starting to get sponsorships, or whether it's just trying to improve their rating, they can't do it because of that. Are you finding that that's a thing? And is there something like when you guys get to TCO, do you think about that when you're planning the events?
Absolutely. So we just actually had this situation here at our provincial championships. We, as 7 women, I joined late to provincials. So the TD had reached out and asked the women, what do you want to do? And they said, well, we don't want to be propagated against the MPOs. Doesn't work for us. And then what happened was and I want to say maybe a little bit of miscommunication, because after I talked to the women, they felt like they weren't quite heard, but the TD propagated us against ourselves. So for myself, who went into FPO as like an 814 rated player, and Gabby Lee from the island is like killing it at like 9 something, I'm just watching my rating tank. But I had the opportunity to play with some of these women and say to them, like, what do you want? And they're like, we don't want to be propagated against MPOs, like MA1, MA2, maybe MP50, MP40. Like, you got to look at the ratings, right? So when TCO comes along, Chad and I we listen to all of this feedback all year round. And we listen, we put them in a pool. So when you see the pools broken out and what courses they're going to, it doesn't necessarily mean that whole pool is playing the same layout. We'll drop 3 or 4 divisions into one layout and the rest into another layout. We really think about it big time. Like, it's important. And, as someone who's been around this long, you can get into like, does par really matter? Like, par 3,
Right.
par 4, just play it. At the end of the day, does it really matter if you're all propagated against each other? But it does matter, because people watch the numbers and ratings, and that's where you can get into talking to like the Paul Macbeths and the Ricky Wysocki's about, do ratings matter? Like, I'm 814 rated, I think, maybe even worse. I don't know, but I don't play. I play maybe 3 or 4 PDGA events a year. That's it. But
You
I play
underestimated yourself, Carrie. Sorry, I have to interrupt. You're 821.
Ooh. Sorry, I just snorted. So, but I went pro way too soon in BC when there was only like 4 pro women. I don't regret it. It's an experience that I can share. But going back to the ratings and stuff, like I said, I only play 3 or 4 events a year. If I tank, then my rating goes down. But I play a lot of golf, and my rating is not indicative of the kind of golf I can play. And I know that, but I don't have enough events to play to make it happen, right? So, but I do think it's important when you're running an event, particularly B tier, A tier, that you take a look at your players and who you're propagating them against, for sure, and what layouts you're using.
And when you propagate them, go ahead, Darryl.
No, sorry, I was just going to interject and just say, because, from talking personally about myself, I have not even been playing a year yet. I started in March of last year. So when you're talking about propagating, how does that work? Like, I've heard the term, and I know those sort of things happen, but sorry.
I don't know if we have enough time, Darryl.
I'm going down the rabbit hole because I don't totally understand it myself. Clive, my podcast partner, could totally get on here and have this conversation with you guys for hours. Propagators, I believe, have to have a PDGA rating and have to have played 6 prior six prior PDGA events in the year leading up to that event that you're running. And then it's based off the course you're playing. So your course has a rating because the propagators who have played it previously. And then, so, if Paul Macbeth plays 18 holes and he shoots a 1040 rated round, and if I throw that exact same layout, my rating is going to reflect against how he played. And I played like he played 15 down to get 1040, and I played 32 above. What's happening to my rating because I'm being propagated against him against the course. I hope that's makes sense. In my head, it does. Get Clive Lovett on here. He'll rabbit hole with you all day.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But so that's why pros say, like, do ratings really count? Like, there was a round that James Conrad played that people were disgusted. It was like they felt like it was rated probably 20 points too low. But then, you get someone who shoots. It's all relative to what's happening on the course and how the very first people to play that course, their ratings basically give the course rating, which isn't fair. It's not like ball golf, right? So, yeah.
Well, and I think we've heard too, when you listen to some of the pros, if it's like on Tour Life and you hear Brody, they kind of talk about it. Once you've made the pro tour, that for them the rating doesn't mean anything. It's who plays the best on the next weekend. I think it's more for the people coming up. It's for us, for Darryl and I, it's just a way to show that we're improving. We may feel like we're improving, but if we get a higher rating, then that kind of proves to us that we're heading in the right direction. But I know that some pros contracts are also maybe tied to their ratings as well, and maybe some of the way their pay structures are set up too.
And for running an event, like you run an A tier, if you're an MA2 player and so TCO is on the 14th of June, 13, 14, 15, or 14, 15, 16. It's my event. I don't know when it is.
14, 15, 16. I've got that for you too.
The second Tuesday, all the new ratings come out. So we've got to take a look at that rating update, and we may be contacting players and bumping them out of there.
Oh,
right? Because your rating dictates what division you can play in. So those people that are just on the line, and I never use the word sandbag. I think it's an insult. But those people that are just on the line, they're looking for maybe their very first MA2 win, and they've just played an event previous month or two events and did well. We have to move them to MA1. And now it sucks for them, right? So, and that's why they brought in the two different, like when you DNF an event, the two different codes that you can put in. Because if you truly DNF for injury, but there was people that used to DNF, claim their elbow hurt because they could see their ratings tanking, right? So they would DNF and So, the PDGA is trying to do the best they can to work with it, but there's ratings mean a lot too when you're playing in a tournament and where you're going to be placed division-wise.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard. Just play and have fun, right? No. Just play and have fun.
Exactly, for sure.
That's the way we look at it.
Yeah. Well, we have a kind of, before we wrap up the women's disc golf section there, I think Darryl's got one more question he's kind of thrown on there. Sure. Did you want to go with that one, Darryl?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the things that Jeremy and I were all about promoting Canadian disc golf and things like that. So we're looking, we've talked about it in the past. We kind of preempted it, but we still haven't sat down and hashed out the actual way it's going to work yet. But we are going to follow along with the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. And we are going to be doing a fantasy draft. We have this league set up. So we're going to be picking, I believe it's 3 FPO, 3 MPO players on each side. And there's a whole different point scale of how we can win and things like this.
It's so awesome. It's already confused us once or twice, but we've got it figured out now.
Yeah, we all have it figured out by the time that we actually come around to doing it. But with the amount of tournaments that you've run and all the FPO people that you see coming through the tournaments and things like that, what I was hoping for, if Jeremy doesn't hear, if maybe you could give us some sort of FPO picks to be looking out for, either future prospects that you've seen, some good young FPO players that might be ones to look for in the future, or is there any solid picks that are top FPO players that we should be looking for?
This
And
is so
before we let
hard.
you answer, I can
Okay.
tell you we had a chance to watch the TCO coverage of Parked Pro, and we've seen, some of your interviews on the
Yep.
podcast, and that we know like Sophia Danecki is kind of one of those up and comers at the moment. But we're looking to say when we get into this, is there some sleepers that we may not have heard of yet that we should be watching for?
I think
Exactly.
this is really hard because the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, coast to coast, we don't see the player base move coast to coast. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So
Absolutely.
out here, I think Sophia Daneke and Gabby Lee are your up and comers for sure. Um, I'm not familiar with like local FA1 players. Joe's doing a great job. Joe Henderson, and Kristen herself as well. Like yeah. But are they going to go all the way across Canada and play like the Foxwood Open and play all the way? You get out east, Karen Martel, like I think if you watch Nationals coverage, she was on Nationals coverage. Kat Johnson.
Yeah.
Um, those would be two. Of course, Chantal, but Chantal's heading down to the Pro Tour, so she
Yes.
got picked up by Prodigy's top level at Prodigy's team. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, it's hard. I don't really. This is the thing. Like, I'm trying to think of some juniors maybe that I can't really think of any junior players that would female players. I'm not familiar with them.
Right.
Latitude picked up a junior female in Ontario this year, and
Okay.
her name has slipped my mind. But Sophia, Gabby, Karen, Kat, Kristen. I would say obviously locally there's great FPOs, but they
Yeah.
don't have the ability to move around and play, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
The way that we're going to
That's
be working is that every tournament we're going to have to pick different players. So yeah, when we know that
Ooh,
we're in the East, so every tournament we're going to be revamping our team. So it's not that we're going to pick a
okay,
team for the season. So yeah,
okay.
hopefully that'll get the fact that we're going to have to look at the registration. We're going to pick some names. We're going to kind of, well, this is what I'm doing. I don't know what Jeremy's doing, but I'm going to be going, looking at the players, maybe going, through their history, seeing which tournaments they've played, how they've fared in other tournaments and things like that. So that'll going to give us an idea of where they
Who's
could be
even
placing. So
registered?
yeah.
Are we the
Once they get
kickoff
going.
event?
Well,
I
you know
think we're
what?
the
We've
kickoff.
asked
well, yeah. Go
we
ahead,
reached
Jeremy.
out
Yeah,
to Matt, and he's not quite they're not quite there
they
yet,
don't
but they
quite
said
have
they're
it
so
yet.
close to releasing it. So
We've committed. So I can say that we've committed to having them come and film TCO. So they will be in Kamloops for sure. So yeah.
and I know last year
Yeah.
TCO was the first event of the tour
Yeah,
as well.
it was.
But
Yeah.
where it was kind of just to go on a little bit for Darryl there is what's going to happen is we're out east and I go, yeah, I've got Colleen and I've got Karen, and then
Oh yeah,
Darryl says
Colleen.
I've got Colleen McInnes, and then if Daryl's like I've got Kat and I've got Jessica Gia, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, who's going to be my sleeper hit for my third spot? Because maybe on both sides, depending on the
Yeah.
tournament, it could be Casey and Brian Freese. But what if Noah or nobody else is there? Those are the ones that he's trying to get some insider information is really what Daryl's trying to
Yes.
do.
That's what it
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know for TCO, I think we have 7 women already registered
Well, Carrie,
for
just
FPO.
like that, Jeremy is prepared to give you a hand with that as well. So
Go.
far, Amber Chason is in, Bailey Inglis, Gabby Lee, Joe Henderson, Julie Mowens, Christy Lee, and Nicoletta. They are all registered.
Nice.
So
Nice. I love it.
yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome to see that there was a good contingent already. So
I love those girls. All of them. They're all amazing. So yeah.
fantastic. Well, let's go and move on to maybe the tournament directing side of things. So when did you
Sure.
first direct your first tournament?
2004 Canadians. I was a
Okay.
co-TD. Yeah.
So now when you say Canadians for us COVID golfers, was that what Nationals was called at that time?
Canadian National Championships. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
we hosted them in Kamloops.
And it was in Kamloops. And was that at Rose Hill? Was that one of the first
It was
tournaments
Rose
at Rose
Hill.
Hill?
Yeah. We had Rose Hill and then across the street. So we've had 2 iterations across the road. So the newer generation of golfers remember Rose Hill East, but for 2004, we had another gnarly down lower than Rose Hill East course. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. So we had two side by side monstrous courses for Canadians. Yeah.
Wow.
And what made you? What made you decide that you wanted to co-TD that
TD?
tournament? Yeah, was it that you were told, you voluntold, or you
No,
asked, or
no,
was
no, no,
there
no.
a need?
So one of our original founders of the Kamloops Disc Golf Club, Clint Anderson, was keen to do this. The city was keen to host, so we worked together. And I was on the board of directors, and I said, "Oh, I want to do this. This sounds really cool. Like, I want to get in here and learn." I was a stay-at-home mom, and so I was like, "What else have I got to do? I can run around and fundraise. I can talk to people. I can work on the course." So yeah, I just got in there and got my hands dirty and absolutely loved the organ. I'm very organized as it is, so just love that piece of it. Love giving back and organizing and um, pulling the behind the scenes strings. So the forward facing event looked so amazing. That's one of my favorite things to do.
That's awesome. And so
Yeah.
with Canadians, and then in '04, to give us some more education with it, was that the year that you had gotten the pros to Canadians, or did that come later on, or when did that happen?
So that year at Canadians, we brought, I got to think about this because we've had so many pros here. I want to say that year, Avery Jenkins came, and Avery Jenkins, who came with him? He won. Dave Felberg,
Okay.
Cameron Todd, I think, came. Christian Dietrich, Nate Sexton, maybe no. Nate came later. Nate came in 2009, I think. But that was Avery's year, I think. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Wow.
I could be looking it up, but you guys, I see monitors in front of your guys' faces.
Yeah,
I'd have to put my phone in front of my face.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're not that prepared on that one. That was the stuff that I was thinking more to hear from you, because this is the information as new disc golfers
won
that we
that
don't
year
know.
as well. So,
Oh,
and that
okay.
year, this is crazy. So this is back when, long before PayPal and everything, where people would write you checks in the mail or give you cash when they showed up, and you'd trust they were coming from Ontario to bring you cash. And so you'd go to the bank and you'd fill your envelopes with cash for the pros, and you'd give them cash. And so we had this huge stack of envelopes to pay out all the pros. And Elaine King's payout was stolen from Tournament Central.
What?
And so our club had to go good. Back in the day, like 20 years ago, we had to figure out how to come up with that. I want to say $1,800 or $1,500.
Oh my.
So yeah, someone stole the envelope. So that's okay. It happens. You get that many people together, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many times did Canadian Nationals actually take place in Kamloops? Because I think, did you have Paige come up one of the years, or was that for a different tournament? Or
no? So we had Paige here. So we hosted Canadian Nationals 2004. I was co-TD. 2011 and 2013, I TD'd it. And then Paige came in 2010 or 2000, her very first year on tour with Eric McCabe. Either 2009 or 2010 she came. So, and then she came for both Canadian championships.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's to us still, because, being new to the game, and we're holding these pros quite high in the air for us. Like, even we were talking earlier before you came on, where we were saying, we like something or we comment on Thomas Gilbert's post or something, and then he likes it, and we're like, wow, he liked our post.
Oh my God. I know. Well, 2006 was the big pivotal year for me. So I'd been 5 years, up to 2005, in the club, and watching, fighting. Really, we need forward tee pads. Oh, you need women's tees? I'm like, no, we need amateur tees, not women's tees. So that was a big one too, trying to break people of that. Like, oh, play from the ladies' tees. Ha ha ha. You didn't get to the ladies' tee. You got to play with your pants down. Like, oh, it's like, they're not ladies' tees, you guys. Like, they're amateur tee boxes. So that was a big decade of learning and teaching. But I realized I thought to myself, what can I do to really involve more women? And they need role models, they need mentors, they need to see that people excel at this sport. So there was a woman involved in disc golf in BC at that time named Inga, and she was heading off to the States in her motorhome to go tour. She was from Vernon, and I had cooked up this idea that I wanted to host an international women's event in Kamloops, and that I was going to bring all the top touring pro women, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but it was going to be huge. And our club was like, okay, this sounds great, do it. And so I said to Inga, okay, if you're going to go to the States, you need to advertise this for me, because 2006, there wasn't like a lot of like, you're still kind of banging rocks together for information. We weren't quite there with the interwebs, right? So we created some posters, and she took off with them from Spokane down through Seattle and down into Idaho. And every club board she got to, she pinned a poster up. And then I started reaching out by email, and it ended up that on this weekend, we hosted a 2-day B tier for the women and a 1-day C tier for the men, because in order to get the women there, the men had to travel, but the men didn't want to be there and just sit around all weekend. So we had Rage in the Sage for the men. And then we had the International Women's Cup for the women. So at the International Women's Cup, Juliana Carver came with her then husband, Sean Sinclair was his name. Des and Jay Redding came.
Okay.
Valerie Jenkins came.
Wow.
Valerie Doss. And a female that was really big in the scene then, an alti player who's gone away from the scene and is in Northern California, I think. Carrie Berloger. They called her Burl. She was,
Okay.
you know, when you talk about Scott Stokley being one of those people from way back when, Burl was one of those players from way back when. She hasn't come back on the scene though. And then we had a couple women from like Virginia come, and Washington State. Nate Sexton's mom or stepmom came and played in this event. So I think we only had 35 women at this event, but it was literally
the 35 women.
The 35 women. And we had people fly from Ontario for it. Like it was crazy. And yeah, Val Jenkins ended up in a playoff against Juliana Carver, who was her idol, and Val won, and it was her rookie year, and it was just mind-boggling. Like I still look at pictures today, and my mind's blown. I have a picture with Juliana and Des, and I'm standing there like just huge grin on my face. Like I can't even believe it's come to life, right? Like even today, I changed my profile picture on Facebook, and Des Redding commented on it. And she's like, oh, I miss that smile. And someone private messaged me like, oh my God, Des Redding posted on it. Like, I know, we're friends. Like, it's cool. Yeah. So I sometimes forget, right, that's like a fanboy or a fangirl moment. For me, they're my friends. So this all went down. But it wasn't until 2019 or 2020, Nate Sexton has a podcast called Running It. And he interviewed Valerie Jenkins. And she talked about in 2006 how she went to this event in Kamloops as a young rookie, broke, but felt like it was the right thing to do. Juliana was going, Des was going, and how she won this money. And back then, I think she won just under $1,000. And that was her seed money that took her to the Japan Open. And that trip to Japan solidified the fact in her mind that she was going to be a professional disc golfer. So that's a story I heard like decades later, that my event was the money that led her to the event that led her to be a pro golfer. Like, you know what I mean? Like you don't realize like the small degree of separation you have and the effect you have on someone's life until you hear a story like that down the road. And I heard it because I happened to tune in that week to Nate's podcast because I love Val.
So amazing.
Isn't that cool? So yeah, it's really neat. And that hasn't happened since in Canada, to have that many women come to one place and be there. And we had a player party. Like this was a thing back in the day. And I don't know, Jeremy, did you come to karaoke night at TCO last year?
I didn't make it. You know what I was doing was I was staying with a friend in, of all places, Wallachin. So I was
Okay.
driving back to Wallachin every evening.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So karaoke was like insane. And it was like what player parties used to be like back in the day. And all the older disc golfers were like, this is what it's like. And we had a player party at the International Women's Cup where the men volunteered to be auctioned off as caddies to raise money for the added cash for the pros. So we had like, we
Awesome.
were at a bar and we had music pumping and the guys came out and they like strutted and women bid on them. And then they carried their bags around for the next day for the other round. So we talked about men who played all day in the raging sunshine, drank all night, and then hung over, caddied for these women on their final round. It was like the highlight for years. People talked about it. They still talk about it. Like it's crazy. And I would love
Wow.
to replicate that. And I was on my way to replicating that when I wanted to host the Canadian Women's Disc Golf Championships in 2019 or 2020. And I started the process in 2019 and had to cancel it at the beginning of March of 2020.
Right. I just wanted to go back to that story about the podcast, like we were talking earlier about your origin story. How does it feel that you were part of her FPO origin story? Like if it wasn't for you right in the beginning,
It
she
blew my
never would
mind.
have gone on. Yeah, that's
It
awesome
blew
that
my
you're going to be
mind. Like
someone's
really,
origin story.
I remember just recently, probably in the past 2 or 3 years, listening to Doug Bierkus from, well, he was with DD, but now he's the head of our PDGA. I've met Doug and he's a very kind and humble man. And actually his daughter, Paige Bierkus, has been to Kamloops. That was my very first interaction with Doug. I'll go back to that. But
We
Doug
love
was
it.
talking,
Yeah.
was talking about being a tournament director for Worlds. And he said, if you're tournament directing so people pat you on the back and tell you how great you are, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And I've never tournament directed for that. Like I've always wanted it to be an experience. I wanted the players to come and feel like that community and that family that you hear about and that people talk about. And that, you know, maybe you sit on your tailgate and you have a beer with the guy that was on your card from across the country that you just met. And you get to share that beer, that experience, and like talk about your kids and, oh, that's my wife calling, I gotta go. And, you know, like it's these moments where maybe they're split second moments, maybe they're 5-minute moments, maybe it's a drunken Saturday night moment that you get to have with these new friends that you've met. But it's so important to me to have that as a TD. And I love to stand there and just soak it in, just like be like, this is why I TD. So they have that experience. And I don't look for the thank yous and the atta girls and the look, I did this. And when you opened my origin story, it was kind of like, whew, okay, he called me a legend. Whew. Like, I recognize that what I did in the early days was very profound to allow women to continue in Canada, at least, or locally. And I had a very profound moment with Sarah Hokom, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But like I say, I'm very truthful, and I mean from the bottom of my heart that what I do today for women is nothing different than what hundreds of other people are doing. What I did 20 years ago was very profound, and I'm glad I did it. But yeah, if you're tournament directing for the pat on the back and the hey, look what you did, hang up your hat. You're doing it for the wrong reason. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And you're not probably going to get that sense of fulfillment out of it because you're not, like you said, you're not doing it for the right reason at all. You've got to do it
You'll start to get bitter. Really, if that's what you're in it for, you'll get bitter and angry because you give. And if you're not getting the right take, yeah, you'll get bitter and angry. Yeah, for sure. I could see it. I could see it happening. I have never. I'm quite happy. Like I said, I love to give. That's why my rating sucks because I don't play enough. I love to give. I love to create. I love to make sure these experiences are there for the player. Yeah. But if you want to go back
I
to
know
the
we
Doug
have
Bierkus. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say. I was just going to say that. I know we have a lot of questions for you, Carrie, but you mentioned on two.
We want to hear your stories.
Yeah, we want to hear the stories. Go ahead.
So my phone rang and I answered it, and I'm like, "Hello," and they're like, "Is Carrie there?" And I was like, "This is Carrie." Like, Carrie Neal, and I was like, "Yeah." This is Doug Bierkus, and I was like, "Oh." that's Paige Bierkes' dad. And I was like, oh, hi. He's like, I'm calling because my daughter's going out on tour with this Eric McCabe guy. Are you familiar with this Eric McCabe guy? And I said, I am. He's like, well, I don't know very much about him. I'm like, I know Eric really well. He's been here many times. I said, and she's in good hands. Trust me. If she's touring with Eric McCabe, she's in good hands. And don't worry, she'll be staying with either with me or my very, very good friends who I know, and she'll be with Eric, and it's all good. And Paige Pierce was coming too. And so and he's like, are you sure? Like, this is her very first time traveling away from home. She's 16. And I was like, you know what, Doug, I wouldn't let her come if I didn't think it was the right thing. So that was my very first interaction with Doug Bierkes, was over his daughter's care. And so now he heads the PDGA. So it's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
and it turned out she had a really good time when she came to Kamloops. And that later that year, not a single Canadian went to Worlds. So she carried the Canadian flag for us as our honorary Canadian. Yeah.
Aww.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you did say Sarah Hokom as well.
Sarah
so we can't
Hokom.
let you get away without telling us that story.
So Sarah came to Clearwater to play for a weekend. She was dating a guy here in British Columbia, and they came up and crossed over the border, and she came and hung out. It's easy peasy B tier to come play and, and camp and have fun. And so there was only 3 women in FPO all weekend. So I knew I'd be on a card with her for 3 rounds. And we got to T-box 1, and you fist bump and everything's good. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing with Sarah Hokom. This is so cool. I love Sarah. So I had never met her. And this is after meeting, having Paige in my house and people sleep in my house, Eric McCabe hanging out at my house. And yeah, here she comes. And I'm like, this is crazy. So we're walking down Fairway 2. And I said to her, I'm like, I'm really sorry if I'm fangirling, and my voice changed. She goes, fangirling? She goes, are you kidding? I'm the one fangirling. She goes, I couldn't wait to meet you when I found out you're going to be here. She goes, down in the States when they talk Canadian women's disc golf, your name's all they say. And I was like, what? Oh my God. Yeah. So yes, it's those aha moments you have where you're like, okay, I'm making a difference. Check.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it's very cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And I still, it's hard because I've met so many pros. I've been in so many different situations and had them in my home, hosted them in my home. Right. I often forget that people freak out about them. When Eric came to design Mac Island, I said to Eric, there's so many people here that want to meet you. Are you cool if on Friday night I open up my house and we do a barbecue? And he's like, yeah, sure. And we had a stream of people coming through my house for probably 2 or 3 hours. And he signed discs and hung out and putted in my backyard with them and stuff. But he was here to work. Right. So I picked one night that he was cool with and we did it. So yeah. And I just know I had bacon and eggs every day with Eric before he went to Mac Island.
Well, you know what, Darryl? I think we can have another episode. It's that Carrie Neal tells us stories about disc golf.
Yeah,
if we could
around the fire
episode about that.
Around the fire with Carrie.
Oh, I just love chatting because you know what? They're all people too, but it's fun when you're it's fun for sure. Yeah.
All right, Darryl, we got to pick ourselves up. Do you have a question where we're at here? Because I'm just in awe. I'm I
know. Yeah, we kind of bring it back to the TDing side of it. I know we kind of touched on it in the beginning, but I wanted to ask you, you often hear people about when they say that when the tournament ends, as soon as that last putt goes in and, the last car drives away, they're right on the phone booking things for next year. We mentioned it earlier about you getting Christmas out of the way and things like that. When you finish a tournament, when does the prep work start for the next tournament for you?
I usually give everybody about a month, to decompress, and literally tournament season starting as TCO's ending. Right. So we do, I call it a postmortem. I hope that doesn't sound bad. We do a postmortem. What was good? What was bad? What could we change? What could we get rid of? I take player feedback, surveys. We sit down and then we say, okay, when are we going to reconvene? And we take a look at it and we're like, okay, well, we can start bidding this time. We know we're going to get our email on this date. We start to casually talk until we know that we've got the date set, that we've been given the date, and then we kick it in. And usually by December, we've reached out to our lead sponsor. We've created our sponsorship package. We have reached out to Parked Pro, like the big things that we need to know before we go anywhere. And we've picked our date for registration. As soon as you say, you
Right.
know, when you want to open registration, you've got a hard timeline. So
Right.
yeah, and that's when it happens. In the meantime, like leading up to that, I'm definitely spending a lot of time talking to people. Like, what about trophies? What do you think? Did you like your trophy? What's the best trophy you've ever got? What about that evening? Did you like the karaoke? Should we do something different? What else would you like to see happen? Like, I'm doing a lot of like verbal surveying of people on all summer as I'm hanging out with people, sitting around the fire on their cards at a tournament. Yeah, just picking people's brains. And lots of people might not realize what I'm doing when they're hanging out with me. They will now if they're listening to your podcast. But I'm creating content for my thought process of what could we do differently or better, or what could we get rid of, right? How can we make the player experience better?
Well, I got 2 points maybe to throw with that, Carrie. I was like, and I bring this up every once in a while, but I used to marathon run. And one of the things for me is I would think there's probably a relationship between training and running a marathon and planning a tournament, especially with the size of the ones that you do. And what I would know is I would be excited, you get injured, you do all these stuff, so you get to the race, and then I'd run that race and I'd be in so much pain because that event is such a big deal. And then at the end of it, you're like, I'm never doing that ever again. And you're done and you're finished. It's been too much. You're writing it off. And then 3 days go by and you're like, okay, when's the next marathon? And you're all over into the thing. Is that similar to what it happens when you get through the TD process and then have that event?
You know what it feels like? I tell anyone who's ever been married. So you get engaged and you start planning, and you plan and you plan and you plan and you invite and you invite. And the day comes and the heightens right here. And for us, it's 3 days. It's not 1 day.
Right.
And that you give out that very last trophy to the MPO, you unroll the big check, they get their money, everyone drives away, you go over to Tournament Central, you clean up, load your vehicle, and as you're locking the door, it's like that very last moment when you're leaving the hall on your wedding night and all the guests have left, and you just kind of go, that's it? It's over? Like everyone just scattered. And you kind of got to come back the next day and clean up the hall and pick up the pieces, and you smile and you cry a little bit because it's over. And you know what I mean? Like I equate it very much to that escalation of planning a wedding, and then boom, it's done in one night.
It's done.
Yeah. And that next day after all the guests have left. And I get a little emotional. I get a little emotional the first day. Like as I'm setting up for player check-in, I get like super nervous. Some tears roll for sure. I panic. I usually have about 25 people tell me it's good. It's too late now. Whatever you've missed, you've missed. But yeah, and then you just get into it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm the personality. I deal on the go. I'm good on the fly. I can solve problems. I've done it enough for enough years that I can deal with media. I can deal with park staff. I can deal with unruly people in the park that shouldn't be there. I don't have an issue calling players for breaking rules or disqualifying, or like that's not anything that scares me. I'm not afraid of that stuff. What I'm most afraid of is that people aren't going to have a good time. They're going to walk away and say, I'm never doing this again. Like that's my biggest fear. Absolutely.
Right.
That really does come back to the wedding analogy, right? People say that, you just want them to have a good time on their wedding day.
Have a good time.
And then to follow on with that analogy, people say that on their wedding day, they were so caught up in the mix of getting ready and going through the motions and making sure everything's good. And when they get to the end of it, they kind of look back on it and they think, well, I don't actually remember too much about it because they're waiting for the photos and the video because they're so involved in the day, right?
I said, oh my God, Jeremy, I probably met you last year. I'm so sorry. Yes. But how many people I said hello to, and first time people like, this is my very first time I've ever played in a tournament. I'm like, oh my God, you picked an A tier. Like what? So
do you have much time to actually enjoy the event, or, I'm obviously you're splitting the juice with yourself and Chad, but are you taking a break and thinking, okay, I've got to enjoy this while I'm here? Or is it always, where's the Band-Aids? Where's the, what, how come the
No.
beer's not full? Or, you know, are you always worrying about something else?
The first year was hard. So the first year we didn't have, so our tournament central at Mac Island used to be an old restaurant. And last year, if anyone was there, the bar was open and they had staff and we had a patio. We didn't have that the first year. It wasn't prepared. So we didn't have actual staff in the building where I could leave and there was somebody in there. I didn't see a single trophy get awarded to the MPO or FPOs in the first year. I was at Tournament Central closing it down while they were awarding Thomas his trophy up at Rose Hill. I really wanted it to be different last year. So last year the bar was open. We had staff, but I also had some volunteers that allowed me to get out on the course and walk and follow a few people at Mac Island. And then I was able to present the FPO trophy and check, which was really important to me as well. But I really end up kind of tied to Tournament Central, where anyone with media is coming in, anyone with questions, any of the players, I really want to be the face of the tournament where people are like, is Carrie around? Yeah, I'm here. Not like, oh, she's out with a beer on hole 15 watching, you know, aces being thrown or whatever. Like, yeah, I want to be there. I was there for Max's ace, by the way. I was there. I saw it. I walked up as he was teeing off. Very cool. But that was just by fluke because someone was in there and said, you should really go out and catch the last couple of holes, blah, 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 blah. So, but again, it comes down to that experience. I don't know how to say this without, I don't want any kind of ego or anything to come into this, but 24 years, I've had the opportunity to go to some really amazing events and I've seen players. I went to the 2014 Worlds and I followed along, walked with Avery Jenkins while Ricky Wysocki and Paul Macbeth played off for the World Championship. Like I was there on the front ropes. Like I want to leave that place that I could take up out there for the fan like you that's never had that experience to be there to see Thomas sink the winning putt. I don't need to be on the front ropes watching that. There's other people out there that deserve that experience. I'm okay being back at Tournament Central and talking to the person that feels jaded because they didn't get a payout or they didn't get a trophy or there wasn't a trophy for ties, or I'm okay taking care of that. Like, honestly, it's about the player experience for me. So, if I get out on the course, that's super cool. Giving out the FPO trophy is very important to me. But other than that, I'm okay. Let the other people experience it. I'm good. I'm cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, with the TDing side of it, because you know what, we could talk to you all night, and we've got so much more to go for, but we'll keep it moving along. But before we get going, as long as you're good, are you good?
Yeah, no, I'm totally good. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, good. So with the TDing, how many tournaments do you think you've TD'd so far? And once you've answered that, Darryl's going to roll right into another question.
Honestly, I haven't TD'd a lot of tournaments. The ones I have TD'd have been large. So co-TD'd 2004 Canadians, TD'd the 2006 International Women's Cup, co-TD'd 2009, 2010 Ultra Glides, which were they used to call them super tours. So they Pro A and B is what they were, super tours. 11 and 13 Canadians, co-TD'd the 2017 provincials. And then the two past TCOs, this year's TCO. And then I've had some small C tiers and co-TD'd some small C tiers in between. The Crush this year, the B tier, the Women's Crush. I've had my fingers in a lot of them. So I sit on the organizing committee for Falcon's Flight, the A tier. I think this is my third or fourth year on the organizing committee with that. I've been mentoring some women in TDing and co-TDing for them. So but I don't have the 100. I'm not Wally. I don't have 100 under my belt.
There you go.
But as a female in Canada, I think my TD resume is pretty profound. And I wish there was more women that had that resume. And that's my goal. I'm mentoring right now 2 women that I think are going to be fantastic TDs. So like they already are fantastic TDs, but I mean like taking on and commanding a local organizing committee, an LOC, and overlooking it and bringing in a team that has different strengths, and there's a lot to it. I don't think you can just TD an A tier or big events if you don't understand how to surround yourself with great people and have strengths work and complement. That comes with a lot of my management and leadership training too. So yeah, so it's not a big resume, but I think it's a profound resume.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think you touched on it there, but I think that's probably definitely from my perspective, that's the aura you give off, that because you're so involved in so many of the big events and you're so well known within Canada, that I just assumed that you had been involved in so many TDs. I thought you'd been TDing for years and things like that. So you kind of touched on it there, that Wally was about to do his 100th event this year, and whether that could have been one of your goals that you were looking, maybe you're not so fixated on the numbers sort of thing, but maybe that was a goal that you wanted to reach, but maybe you're not
No, you know
near
what?
that.
We have TDs
Just
here.
broader involvement in the sport.
Broader involvement in the sport, for sure. As a female, I think dipping my toes into a lot of areas, into a lot of ponds, rather than, jumping into the lake and surrounding myself with the boys of that lake, dipping my toes in and sharing my experience. And, the experience I have and the pieces I've been part of and helped build, I think maybe even is what led me to the job I currently have. So, I got a job as a tournament support with a Top Link out of Barrie, Ontario. So supporting tournament directors and helping them build out player packs and building tournament player experience and stuff like that. So I'm just proud of my resume, but there's so much more to do out there, and there's so many more women that can do way more. And I just really want to be there to encourage them and to help them and to let them know that if they need a voice, I'm here. They can have the 100 tournaments, and I'll be their voice on every single one of them if that's their goal. So, yeah.
I was just going to say that maybe that you haven't TD'd 100 tournaments, but you're definitely paving the way for the next person behind you to TD the 100. Yeah, for
and
sure.
I feel like I've got one here in Kamloops. When I said Elizabeth DeVries, she's definitely I think she's run since last year. Like, we have these events in BC started by the Mowens family on the Lower Mainland in Vancouver Island called Get In, Get Out, Get Rated. So it's super cheap. It's like get in and play, get out and go home, wait to get rated. It's like $10. There's no payouts, no player packs, no nothing. Just covers permits and fees, but it's an opportunity to build your rating throughout the winter. Right? They're just C tiers. And so I think Elizabeth has run 6 of them since the fall. And she charges a little more. She pays out her pros. She gives a little bit of a player's pack, whether it's like a Cliff Bar and a bottle of water or something. And she shows up to every single one, rain, shine, snow, freezing cold weather. And her series was called Chili Chains. And I'm so proud of her. And now out here in BC, we're running a BC Women's Series. So the woman that is the founder of that event, Shannon Sanders, she's a COVID golfer. She's only been involved for 2 or 3 years. I said to her, whatever you need, I got you. So I'm running an event for her. So is in Kamloops, and so is Elizabeth. But it's tournaments TD'd by women for women is what it is across BC. So I've been helping out with that too, and mentoring Shannon a bit and helping her, answering questions, pretty much on the phone with her every week if we're not texting, and just making sure that she feels supported and that she has a voice in the community, because she's newer to the sport. So people are like, who are you? How are you doing this? And so-and-so's not doing this, right? So I said to her, I'd love to be part of this, and I'll lend my name to it if it makes a difference. If putting my name on it and allowing me to have a voice with you makes a difference to make this happen, that's what I'm here for. But it's your event, it's not mine. So that's the point
Awesome.
I'm at with tournament directing.
And with the tournaments, before we move on to the big tournament that's up and coming, because we do want to
Yep.
get to that. But one question to kind of
Yeah.
flash back is, you said COVID stopped you from doing the women's tournament in Canada that you were looking to
Yeah.
put on. Is that something that's still on your list of maybe tournaments that you want to do, that you want to maybe attempt that one again? Oh, I saw a big, not, I don't want to put anything on your plate because
No,
I'm
it's
still in
okay.
awe of everything you've done already, but
It's okay. So the Canadian Women's Disc Golf Championships was definitely a dream of mine, and I won't let it die. But what happened was, here in Kamloops, and after the sport shut down around sport period shut down around the world, and in BC in particular, we were one of the last to come to the table where we were allowed to host events again. Alberta was hosting tournaments long before we could. And when it finally came back around, I had been granted A-tier status by the PDGA for the women's tournament. And so I reached back out and I said, listen, what we want to do is not the women's tournament, but we want to host an A-tier just to bring sport back to life in BC and get more people out here and more involved. We have this whole new era of disc golfers that have come in the past 2 years. And the PDGA basically said, tell us why we should give it to you. You haven't run an A-tier since, 2011. We hadn't run an A-tier. So, and you have to run a B-tier successfully for 3 years before you get an A-tier. So I reached out to the PDGA and I wrote a little essay on why the Kamloops Disc Golf Club should be allowed to host an A-tier with me at the helm. And they granted us the TCO in 2022. So I feel very fortunate that that happened, but that's what happens when you have a really great club that runs a tight ship, sets the bar, steps up, and makes a difference in your disc golf community. And so we got 2022. So it was 9 years, I think, since we had hosted a event that gave us the A-tier, and ran with it. And I don't know where I was going with this.
Well, I think just maybe back to whether women's disc golf
women's.
championship is
So
still
what
on
happened?
the horizon.
In the meantime, Christy reached out, Christy Shields from the Kootenays, and she said, I want to run the Canadian women's. What do you think? Are you okay with that? And I was like, go for it. Like it's not on my time watch, my watch anytime soon. So she went with it and we got quickly shut down. That's another story. Told that we couldn't use that title, the Canadian Women's Disc Golf Championships. And so she reached out and said, what are we going to do? And I said, we're just going to rebrand it. Let's start thinking, put on your thinking cap. This is not stopping. So she came up with the Crush. Andre Lauder from Park Pro developed our logo. And the Crush came to life in the Kootenays. And the idea about the Crush was that it would be a women's B tier that would move around and promote women's disc golf. You'd have to be a PDGA member. Andre was going to come and film, and we were going to go after the PDGA grants that were there. So 2022 was very successful in the Kootenays. 2023 in Kamloops, super successful, forward facing. A little bit of a struggle getting funding from the PDGA. In the last week, they pulled funding from us. That's why it wasn't filmed. That's another whole story from the PDGA. We appealed it and it fell through, but we basically had the support of everybody except a few key people. So that's why there was no post-production of the Crush in 2023. But the women that attended, it was absolutely amazing. So this was the iteration that we were slowly going to build women's golf back up with. So this year the Crush is in Calgary, August 17th. Being run by Brenda Paige and Jody Rooney from the Calgary Disc Golf Club. I unfortunately won't be able to be there because we're running a women's C tier in Kamloops that weekend. So, it's okay.
There's only so many weekends in the year.
That's right. And it's part of the BC Women's Series. So that's all right. So eventually I'd like to see the Canadian women's become a thing. But as you've seen, when Canadians were in PEI, and it was hard to travel there. Canadians are in BC this year. People are struggling with what event do they come to? Do they come to TCO, BC Open? Do they come to Canadians? What do they do? It's not like living in Saskatchewan, Alberta, or BC, and you can kind of attend all of them, right? I don't know if Canada's ready for Canadian Women's Disc Golf Championships now that I think about it. And I think about, like, we don't even have a provincial Women's Disc Golf Championships. Ontario does. They're the only province, but Alberta doesn't do it. We don't do it. Maybe a Western Canadian Women's Disc Golf Championships. Kristen, are you out there? You hear me, girl?
She watches. She listens to the show.
I know she does. I love that kid. But yeah, you know, as much as I want to think that Canadian women's disc golf is at a point where that dream's ready to come to fruition, I don't know if it is. I wouldn't want to put the cart before the horse. Is that the saying? You know, I wouldn't want to create and bring in all this added cash and have all these sponsors come on board to have like 110 women show up. You know, there's more than that across Canada golfing. I know that. Like I look down in Texas. Texas is doing a series of like 8 or 10 events. And it's like 6 of them are women's. I think it's 5 of them are women's C tiers. There is 2 of them are women's B tiers. There's a unsanctioned doubles fundraiser. And then it's the first women's A tier in North America. And I think they have 110 women already registered for it. So, and that's in Texas, where the population is huge, right? Yeah. Madison Tomato's doing a whole series out in Oregon that we kind of based our women's series off of in BC, but she's running events and women's B tiers, and it's crazy. And they're not getting that, 150, 175 women turnout. I think there's still some work to do there to create that large of an event solo. Like the US women's is a big deal, right? Women travel. Like I went to register as an FP50 player in Austin, Texas, and I think it was going to be 280 American just to register.
And then you got to still get there. And
I still got to get there. I got to stay. I got to get a car. So I'm not going. So, but I don't ever want those barriers to be there when we can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it's a major, but I've been to Worlds twice and I know what I paid to go to Worlds for the experience. That's not in people's budgets anymore. It's just not like that anymore. Yeah. So I'd rather see the smaller regional women's events happen and be super successful and grow from there. And maybe in 5 years, we see a Canadian women's. That would be my hope. And really well run, central, where it makes sense. Yeah, something like that.
Well, and as you're talking about it, Carrie, I can just envision that Crush is probably the perfect, like if you think of planting a seed and watching it grow into something, I think Crush could possibly be that. So all of our female listeners, make sure you start going to the Crush events. The Alberta crew, heading down to Calgary is not a big deal for us, and
it's
start to grow it from there, right?
It's the same weekend as Wally's 100.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, ladies. Get out and crush at the Crush.
There you go.
And let the guys go to Wally's. Yeah, I know it's going to be torn. I know if I was going, I'd be torn because Wally's a very good friend, longtime friend. I admire him. Super proud of what he's done for the Alberta scene. But yeah, I'd be going to Crush just to support the women. And I also know male players that are skipping Wally's 100 to volunteer at the Crush.
Awesome.
So,
that's
great.
Throw
that out there.
Keep that in mind as well, listeners.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, Carrie, let's go to the big tournament because we did not want to get through this podcast without putting a bunch of focus on the Tournament Capital Open. Sure. Now, right now, again, I've got it written down. June 14th to 16th is when it's going to be happening this year. And right now, when we're recording, we're still not in full registration mode. We're in protected divisions at the moment. And then sponsors are coming up. But probably, and we're going to apologize to everybody because I don't know, Darryl, we might be releasing right about the time that registration opens. But I know from last year, this tournament fills up super fast, right?
It does. Unfortunately, this year we are playing with BC Open being 2 weeks after us and Canadians being in September, an hour and 20 minutes up the highway. So for the traveling players, there's a lot to decide on. I believe BC Open is a USDGC throw pink qualifier. We are not. So I don't think our numbers are going to be in the 400 range this year. I'd be very happy if they were. I think we're going to hover probably in closer to the 300 player range, which is totally fine. Um, you know, you don't have to be the biggest to be the best.
That's right.
Yeah, no. And I think, I appreciate what you say, because I think that the popularity comes, you know, there's obviously better courses out there. But I think it comes from the show that we put on and how well run it is, and the people that are on our team and our volunteers. And that means a lot to a player. I know when I go to a tournament, I'm not maybe playing the best course I could be at. It's no Maple Hill or whatever, but if I'm being treated well and everyone's happy to have me there and I feel welcomed, it really means a lot and weighs into whether I go back or not. Obviously, courses are part of it. And I know that's also a struggle this year with players coming to Kamloops. It's a piece of it. So I'm happy to discuss that.
Well, we'll get there, but
Yeah.
Okay.
here's my story with TCO that I wanted to
Okay.
share was, so I had played, kind of gotten into disc golf 2 years ago and was just playing, then started in an EDGA league, but hadn't touched a single tournament. And then I got interested. I started watching some of the tour events and understood what PDGA was and ratings and that. And I tried the Tundra Toss last year, and that was my first tournament. And while I was there, Terry Hong and Zoe Lorenz Bozer, they were talking about, oh yeah, we're thinking of going out to TCO in Kamloops. And I said, well, I have a friend out in Kamloops and I've got some WestJet dollars burning a hole in my pocket from COVID. I'm like, maybe I can go into that tournament. So I went from going to, a little local C tier Tundra Toss. And then my next tournament was MA3 TCO. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into when I showed up? But it was
So
like,
you were one
that
of
was
the
the
first,
best way
this
to
was
go.
your first A tier.
It was my first A tier.
That's amazing. Yay.
Yeah.
I
Well,
know
and I showed up. Go ahead.
I said we had players, it was their very first tournament ever. Like they hadn't even played a C tier
Right.
before. And they were just like, what is this? What have I done? Like totally panicked.
Well, that was it. I got off the plane. I got my rental car. I went down at the time to Okanagan to grab my players pack, and then I
Yeah.
went straight up the hill to Rose Hill, and then I drove down to Logan Lake and got a practice round in at each place. But one of the things that was a big deal to me was, as a beginning tournament player, like you guys put so much thought into your players packs that it wasn't just a disc that maybe I could or couldn't throw depending on my ability. It
Yeah.
was like, if I had never played a tournament before and I didn't know what I was getting into, I was covered. It was like, oh, there's going to be a weight on this tee. That's okay. We've given you a stool. You can sit down in that. Oh, Jeremy, you threw your disc into a tree and you can't get it out. Oh, don't worry about that. We've given you a grabber to pull it out. Oh, Jeremy, did you know you need a mini? Don't worry about it. We gave you a mini for it. It was like you guys put together the perfect pack that anybody who'd never been to a tournament, they were all
Thank
set and ready to
you.
go. I was impressed.
Thank you. We do trophy only. It was a bit of a gripe in sorry, in 2022. But part of trophy only is to make sure that your player packs are great and that you have a fantastic experience. You got cool trophies. In 2022, everybody got a paratrooper bag.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, towel. I can't remember what else. This year, they're going to be super fun. They're going to be cool. Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
if you've
teaser.
registered,
Yeah.
registered, we're asking for your jersey size. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
you go.
So anyone that's
Wow.
anyone that is part of disc golf that understands the scene, there's a company called Hand Eye Supply, and there is an artist that designs for them, and his name is Crispin. And oh
You
yeah,
mentioned them earlier on.
there
Yeah.
you go, Hand Eye. So Crispin designs all the funky hand, like with the hand and the eye and the crazy stuff. He designs all those logos. And he works for DD. So DD is our sponsor for the event. He's designing our jerseys for this year, our player
Wow.
jerseys. Yeah.
I
So
don't
it's
know
pretty
if
cool.
and I know I'm still new, but I don't know if I know of any tournaments that give out jerseys as part of their players packs, or not any of the ones that I
Well,
normally hear
I'm
about.
working for Top
Yeah.
Link now, so if you guys need a hookup, let me know.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
Well,
awesome. Yeah.
when I was looking
Mhm.
here, I had it written down so that everybody does know is that the full registration opens up on Family Day, February
Yeah.
19th. So you've done quite nice. You've given everybody the whole day to think about it so that at 8
Yeah.
o'clock p.m. they're ready to go and they can
You
register.
bet. There's a
And I
host
also,
hotel.
oh, and
So,
go ahead.
yeah, there's host hotel. So we've partnered with a hotel that is located up by the mall. So you're close to Logan Lake and you're close to Mac Island, not as close as Mac Island, but you shoot onto the highway and you're max 25 minutes to Logan Lake from where you are. So, yeah, and
Yeah,
great
that's
deals
good.
too.
Well, and with it too, just when we were talking about filling up, I don't know that you knew this, but when I looked, I think you had 200 spots for registration. At least that's what it was set up on Disc Golf Scene at the moment.
Yep.
But it was 25% full with all of the people who had registered so far.
Nice.
So
I
of
like it.
that number, now as I said, if you
Yeah.
extended a little more, that'd
Yeah.
be a
Our
little bit
early
different.
registration, our early registration opened up, kind of went up in price this year. We went to $50. We got rid of the Coroplast T signs. Coroplast isn't recyclable in British Columbia. I don't know if it is anywhere else. Um, but people last year we charged $30 and you got like a little T sign, 8.5 by 11, I think, out at your hole. And that was to get in early to guarantee your spot. And we put a business logo or your own logo on it. And the idea was that you would take that sign with you. Um, Literally, I think maybe a 16th of the signs people picked up. And then we did the same thing in 2022. So I filled up the back. I have a Kia Sorento. I dropped my seats and I filled up the back of my car with 2 years of Coroplast and I put it in the landfill and it killed
Hmm.
me. I was just
Yeah.
like, this is not okay. This is a lot of waste. And how many tournaments around the world, North America for sure, are using Coroplast and dumping it like that. So I just said to our tournament, like, no, we're not perfect. To our LOC, so we're not perfect, but there's something better we could do. So I got a hold of Goat Towel and I told them what we were doing. And Craig gave us a little bit of a discount. So with your $50 registration fee, yeah. Is that the big one? That's the big 18 by or 20, whatever. Yeah, that's the big one. So you're getting a custom designed goat towel and then a separate lanyard, not your parking pass, player pass lanyard, but a separate lanyard that basically says tournament support 2024. So rather than have a T sign out in a course that nobody sees or forgets, you're your own walking T sign. People know that you sponsored because you got you'll be wearing two lanyards, your sponsored lanyard and your player lanyard. Plus you get a goat towel that goes on you get to use it. So for $50, you get those two things. We make a little bit of money back to the tournament and you sponsor the tournament. We're not seeing as many people register. I think the $50 mark might have been a little high for them, but that's okay. We'll order extra towels. And if people feel like they want to support after the fact and pay the $50, we'll have the lanyard and the towel there for them as well. So,
And that's instead of the whole sponsor, did you say?
yeah, instead of putting your T sign
Yeah.
out on the course, you're basically your
Right.
own walking hole sponsor. You don't get your own logo, but people recognize that you gave to the tournament and supported it. And you get a
Right.
keepsake to take home that rather than a Coroplast sign that you put on a shelf, you got a goat towel that you can use.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, that's a good idea for sure. And definitely when you say that, as soon as you painted that picture of your Sorrento filled with those chloroplast signs, and that's one tournament, right? Like you said, how many other tournaments are doing that same thing? So
Exactly.
it's a good idea
Exactly.
to be smarter about how to make the tournament more green.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
Now, let's get to the hot topic.
Okay.
Okay.
Which
the hot
one?
topic. Well, first thing I'll say is this is Darryl and I follow a lot of different tournaments on Disc Golf Scene, and I think we're up to about 40 comments that keep filling our inbox about TCO
Oh,
because everybody's got so many
Yeah,
good things to say, so many questions, so many things. So that is another, you have to look at that positively in the fact that people care about the tournament and they're
absolutely.
asking questions about it and they're interested in it. So that's been good. But the one
Yes.
question that comes up, and you had said we should talk about it, is let's talk about the courses that were picked this year.
Yes.
Last year, the three courses were Mac Island, Logan Lake, and Rose Hill.
Yep.
And for myself in the MA3 division, we played Logan Lake twice, and
Yep.
then we played Rose Hill once, and then a lot of the other groups played Rose Hill twice, and then Mac Island once. I think is that kind
Yep.
of how the
The
pools were
pros,
split up.
yeah, the pools were split up. Rose Mac and Logan Rose, and
Yes.
there was a C pool I think that played
Oh,
Mac Logan. Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
So this year, a lot of people have been interested to learn a little bit because Rose Hill's not going to be included, and a lot of people love that course, myself
I
included. So what can
know.
you
Me too.
I know you've kind of put comments, but I figured why not, while we're talking about it, let anybody who's listening be able to hear it in your own words, what's going on and where
yeah.
we're at. So,
For sure. Okay, so it started last year at TCO, actually. We found out only because, okay, so there's big power lines that run through Rose Hill. And in British Columbia, we have BC Hydro, and they have a right of way underneath those power lines. And they don't have to give or ask, sorry, permission or tell anybody or any user group that they're going into their right of way to do work. So we happened to have a basket right in a spot where they needed to replace a hydro pole. So they reached out to the city and said, "Hey, what are you going to do about this? We're coming in to knock stuff down and flatten this area." And they're like, "Oh, that's our disc golf club. Here's their information." So this guy reached out to me and I said, "Oh, okay, well, no worries. We can move the basket. When are you planning on coming?" And literally, they were coming in to flatten that area of the course 2 days before TCO. And I said, "Oh God, no, 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 we got to work on this." So he met with me. I took my husband as transparency. I never do anything for our club solo. I always have someone for transparency. My husband had the day off. And this guy basically just said to me, "You're lucky that you had a basket here, or else you would have showed up for TCO and they would have had excavators, backhoes, whatever, because they were replacing the two huge power line, the poles, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So we swung a deal with him. Our club was going to do some work the Monday. TCO ended Sunday. Monday, we were moving baskets and clearing it out. And anyways, they came in and they cut down a whack of trees, flattened that whole entire green. So we knew we had some work to do. And in the meantime, the city didn't pour T pads last year. So they said, "We're going to pour T pads in spring of 2024. Our club's like, "Okay, we got to fix this green in the spring of 2024 once hydro's done." Um, and so TCO happens, parking becomes absolute shambles up there. Two vehicles had their mirrors ripped off on their car on the way up Rose Hill beyond the mailboxes because they had parked beyond the mailboxes. So parking control came in and backed the parking down. Some residents started complaining because there was cars parked on the grassy area and that was going to ruin the grass. And we pay for city parks, we're taxpayers. It's a very rich high-end community that lives in Rose Hill. If you've ever driven up there, they're big, beautiful homes. We're ambassadors of the park and we work with them a lot, the community association. So doing the postmortem, city decides we can't park on the grass anymore. It's causing too many issues between the residents, some of the park staff that were worried about irrigation being damaged. So that eats up probably 30 spots maybe of parking. And then city tells us that we can't park up and around the corner on either side of the road. So judging it, we lose probably 20 to 30 more spots of parking. So now we're down to super limited parking. People aren't carpooling. Like they want to go watch the pros play. They're not carpooling. And then the T pads, we still don't have a timeline of when the city's going to go in and start pouring T pads. And this is the second year now. They delayed it last year. We need to work inside their timelines. We need to be able to say, yes, okay, we're ready to go. But they haven't given us the go date yet. And we don't want to say, they go, oh, June 1st. We'll be like, they're not cured for June 14th, 13th, 14th. Like, we can't do it. We don't want to say no again. Right. So we're kind of beholden to the city's timeline for T-pads. No parking. And the other thing was, we asked about parking control because we have it at Mac Island, and they wanted us to hire an independent company to come in, and they need like at least a 3-month window of parking or traffic pattern to understand on those days what the patterns are like. So we have to pay for an independent company to come in and do a survey of traffic flow and submit a parking and traffic plan to the city, so they'll provide traffic control. So we don't have the money to do that. So Rose Hill right now for us, not that it's a pain in the butt, but it's an unknown. Like, we don't want to open up the tournament for that many more people, open up that course, and then all of a sudden the city say, okay, we're ready to pour T-pads. And it's like, wow, okay, well, we don't have parking. We need shuttles. We need parking control. So there's this, it's all like this, it's all a moving ball of
target.
Crap right now. And we're all volunteers. We don't get paid to do this, right? So for us, it was easier just to take Rose Hill off the table this year. So when we were deciding that and talking about it, we thought maybe Dick Hart might be ready, but we had a super unprecedented fire season in British Columbia last year. And during that fire season, we weren't allowed to run a chainsaw, an excavator, heavy equipment, none of that stuff, anything that could possibly spark a fire. So we got set back probably 3.5 months in work on Dick Hart. So we scrambled, burnt out every volunteer and club member we had to have it ready for some C tiers in the fall. And now you can't really work on it when it's under snow. So it won't be ready in time. Not ready, not A tier ready. We need to be able to have proper T-pads, and we need to be able to have the fairways cleared properly. And we just don't want to introduce it to the greater disc golf community as a C tier course. Does that make sense? So our hands are tied. We've got Mac Island and we've got Logan Lake. Fortunately, we have Brett Hanna in Logan Lake. And I don't know if you know that name, but if anyone's familiar, they're gonna get to know that name big time in Canada for disc golf, because he is a mover and a shaker. He moved to Logan Lake October. He's been there a year. He's been there a year maybe. And he took Copper Ridge and completely redesigned it. So the Logan Lake course we played last year will be completely different this year. We've actually got like a very Maple Hill-esque, where you kind of have to forehand shoot over the little cove of water to the basket. We've got like a water carry hole. We got it's beautiful. It's got gold pads going in. It's been completely redesigned. So this year, the A pool, which has the pros in it, they will play Logan Mac, and vice versa will be Mac Logan. Mac Island in that time of June is in full bloom. So every willow and every leaf is just fully out there. OB will be tight. It'll be a great course to play. And Logan Lake's going to be spectacular. It's going to be, a very different course than anyone's thought of. So, do I want Rose Hill's one of my favorites. It's where I cut my teeth. It's where I learned disc golf. It's where I go when I feel that need to go to church. I go to Rose Hill. That's where I find my peace and my, it's, it hurts that it's not involved. And I get it. I get that people are upset about it. I get that it's going to drop numbers. But again, I'm about under promising and over delivering and ensuring that the player experience is intact. And I just don't think that having Rose Hill in the mix this year would keep the player experience intact.
Yeah.
It's hard.
We've spoken
I got
to
thick skin.
Tim previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems we've spoken to Tim previously about all the efforts and the back and forth and how frustrating at times it can be working with the city to try and get things, done on the course. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, do you have a good relationship with the city? Like, is it a thing that they're not necessarily pushing back on you because they just don't want disc golf in that area? I mean, obviously the neighborhood,
No.
maybe they have a choice as well, but it's just a case that, they have their own timeline, they have their own budgets, they have things, and it's just that the two are not lining up.
Yeah, so we have a fantastic relationship with the city. We actually, in British Columbia, we have a lot of other clubs lean on us about how to connect with the city. The city contracts, like any other city, contracts out the concrete work. And so it's a
Right.
matter of the contractor letting the city know when they can do it, so the city can let us know when we. It's just a timeline thing, and the
Yeah.
timeline's not set yet. And as we keep creeping forward, that timeline keeps moving, right? And Rose Hill will be in play that week, as long as they're not pouring concrete. We're going to have there's a plan for a flex start C tier to happen that week at Rose Hill. Our clinics are going to happen that up there. Like Rose Hill will be in the mix as long as we're not pouring concrete. It's because the parking will be flexible. Like we're not going to see 200 people trying to park up there to watch Thomas win the TCO, right? So,
Yeah.
and in the meantime, parking is something that we can take on with the city and challenge them about. And because there is places to park up there. We didn't push hard enough in 2022 for it. They declined it in 2023, but I think with enough feedback from this year, we should be able to open up a bit more parking up there. But yeah, Rose Hill's not out of the game. It's just not part of the actual 3-day tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, I appreciate that you taking the time to talk about that, because the one thing that shows to me is, it's hard to put it into words, but it's like people are like, oh, you just took Rose Hill out. No, we didn't just take Rose Hill
No.
out. We did
Yeah.
everything we could to do it. But if we tell you Rose Hill is in and it's not there, I'm going to
Yeah.
disappoint you a whole lot more than if
And
we just come up with a different plan that allows us to put on the best tournament that we can.
thank you. And that's my whole thing. I'd rather, if Rose Hill means that much to you and that's how badly you want to play it, I'd rather you didn't come and just miss out than me promise you Rose Hill, you come, and then me have to rip it out from under you and be like, oh, hey, by the way, you're going to go play a half-assed Dick Hart. And then you hate playing Dick Hart because it's got dirt tee pads at an A tier and it's raining and everything's muddy and the fairways aren't totally cleared and the rough is still piled up wood that's been cut. And you know what I mean? Like, that's not a good tournament to me. I know I wouldn't want to be treated that way as a player. If I paid $125 as an AM or $180 as a pro to go play, I don't want my TDs half-assing it the week out and now I'm too late to cancel because I can't get my money back. I'd rather just say no from the get-go and then work Rose Hill into the mix. Like I said, with a flex start C tier, you got another PDGA event to play that week if you're there early. Go take a clinic with Thomas or Scott. Go out for random doubles. You know what I mean? So join league on Wednesday night. So yeah.
Well, and from my viewpoint from last year is part of this tournament being a 3-day, it was rolling tiered starts. And I had starts that were, say, at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning. So, a lot of the events are going on later in the day. There's a whole afternoon available.
Exactly.
There's nothing stopping a person from driving up to Rose Hill and playing that round and still getting that experience of that course. So
exactly.
Yeah, but I can also speak to, and I saw Logan Lake in last year's iteration, and it is a bit of a drive from Kamloops, but you know what? Darryl and I drive to Devon, Alberta, or we'll drive out to Athabasca, like you were talking about Wally's. Like we'll make those drives for those tournaments and for those events. But going down to Logan, it's a beautiful drive.
Yeah.
It's a nice little community, and the course is going to, if you're not a wooded player, it's going to teach you really quick how to be a wooded player. And that's what I found.
And that's the juxtaposition. So this year, you're going to go into the woods in Logan, and you're going to come to the park and mowed grass at Mac Island, right? And you're going to have those, Mac Island's going to be fun on Sunday with the pros because they're going to play the woods for 2 days in a row. And then they've got that option to get out there and birdie run the birds, risk the OB on Sunday. It'll be pretty fun on Sunday.
Yeah.
So
I think the only people who might have a little bit of trouble is I'm interested to see how the Parked Pro boys manage to film in the trees there. But
I am too.
We've figured it out in other courses, so I'm sure they'll get that figured out as well.
Yeah, totally. So, and I appreciate you guys asking me about the courses. I appreciate the opportunity to publicly talk about it. And people got to understand, it's so easy to get behind a keyboard and say, oh, it's a big L not having Rose Hill in play. It wasn't something that happened off the cuff. This is something we've been talking about for a while. At least my LOC doesn't make doesn't make these decisions lightly. It's hard. Rose Hill is Kamloops. Kamloops is Rose Hill when you talk disc golf. Like, that was the only course we had for so many years. And to not actually have it in a tournament of this caliber as one of the premier courses is really difficult. It's a very difficult decision. But like I said, I can't promise something that I don't even have a timeline on. I can't. That's why Dick Hart isn't part of it either. I'm so excited for all of Canada to see Dick Hart. I can't wait for the day that we can bring everybody here, but it's just not ready. It's not something I'll allow on footage. Or you can go drive up there and play it when you're here. It'll be ready. You can play it for sure. But you'll when you get there, you'll be like, yeah, okay, this is cool. I'm happy that this wasn't an MPO course or an FPO course, or So.
Well, and one thing to kind of add some more support about that too, in my mind, is say you're an AM player and you haven't played a lot of tournaments, or you're on the fence because you're reading these comments and such. Listen to the pros and watch what they're doing. And the fact that Joe is coming out guaranteed, she was saying that when she was on our show, that was a tournament that was on her list, being that Gabby Lee's coming out already, Julie Mowens, all of these people who were there last year, they're coming back. They want to be there. Yeah. We were listening to Thomas Gilbert do his one of his live spots that he was doing. And some of the questions was where he was going to play in Canada. And the first place he said, I'll be at TCO, I'll be at Foxwood Open, and I'll be at Nationals. So if Thomas Gilbert is coming up to play TCO, I think the AMs can rest assured that it's going to be a great event.
And he was the first person I reached out to, because Thomas stays with me when he comes. So I said, am I booking the room for you? And he was like, yeah, I'll be there. I was like, all right, sweet. So yeah. And it really pleases me to see Thomas is coming, and it's right after Beaver State Fling. So I hope someone tags along with them.
Yes. Well, that would be great if we saw someone else come up. But do you think, like last year, Max and Casey, have you heard anything from them at this point? Have they started making their plans?
Casey and Noah are registered for an event in Idaho, I believe at Caliber Disc Golf, same weekend. So they're registered across the border. Yeah. So that's okay. I don't know where Max is going. I'd love to have Max come back. I don't know. I know Scott Stokley will be here. And for me, that's huge. I've been a Scott Stokley fan since the day I found disc golf. So he'll be here. He'll be here all week, actually. So
he'll be doing his clinics and that as well.
I believe so. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are following him, but he has like a filmmaker with him all year. So they'll be here. And so Carver Whitford, I don't know if you're familiar with Carver. He's out of Kelowna. He is a adaptive athlete. So Carver plays with just his finger and his thumb. And he's just won his first MPO event here in Kamloops. He's 16 years old. And he's a crusher. He's amazing. So I connected him and Scott a while ago, or helped connect them. And Carver's staying with Scott all week here. So he'll be part of Scott's documentary. And I believe Scott's going to be doing some clinics. And it'll be very cool. And Thomas is going to do some clinics as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Darryl, I've been hogging again. So do you got a question you want to throw out there?
You go right ahead, Jeremy. You're rolling.
Can I just say for
All
you
right.
guys that haven't been playing very long, Darryl, you said like maybe a year. You guys got like
Yep.
so many discs in behind you. Like it is so cool. I wish my walls
Yeah.
are bare. I have like all my discs are in little totes. I keep on donating all my discs to like fundraisers and waffles and to raise money for other things. And I've got this one like shoebox tote of like maybe 18 discs that I cherish. And then I have a wall in my basement too. But yeah, I'm just not a collector anymore.
Well, and this is part of course, if we're going to have a podcast, Carrie, we got to have a background. So that's
I
part of these.
guess.
These ones come promptly off the wall after we're done recording and go right into the bag and back
Back
to
in
the
the bag.
cords.
Amazing. I love it. Okay. Awesome.
Well, you know what we do, you talking about discs is a perfect segue, but one thing that we didn't touch on, and I wanted to make sure to give a little bit of air to, was the fact that you also have a podcast of your own.
Yeah.
And we've been listening to it and catching up on the episodes there. And, you had Sophia on towards one of your last, most recent episodes, and then Chantel as well. Can we expect that the podcast is coming back and going to
It
be
is.
some more episodes?
Yeah, we're recording. Oh gosh, what is today? Thursday. Monday night we're recording, and then the following Monday night we've got another one recording. So yeah, we got a couple coming up back to back. Yeah.
Awesome. So for everybody out there who I know most people will probably know, but in case they don't and they're listening to our podcast, then check out Flight Paths with you and Clive, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clive's amazing. He's he you put stuff out to the universe and you hear it, if the universe hears it. I've always wanted to do a podcast. I've always thought it'd be really cool. And Clive is a pandemic golfer and approached me one day and we were talking and he's like, kind of like as a newbie and as an OG, would you want to do a disc golf podcast? I'm like, who are you and who sent you? This is amazing. yes, I do. So yeah, it's very cool. So he's been amazing. I just show up, click the link. He's like, join yeah, he does it all from the other end. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So he's your Darryl is what you're saying.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, because Clive's English, right?
He is English.
And I'm English, so that makes you Carrie, Jeremy.
I could only dream of being the OG
I do all
like
the
Carrie.
back end stuff, and
That's
you're
right.
the talker.
You guys should have Clive on though. If you guys want to have that talk, he was actually trying to get a hold of the UDisc guys to find out why they can't. I don't understand this with ball golf, but like the slope rating of a golf course or whatever. So every golf course has a slope, and that's how your handicap goes against it. And I don't know, but anyways, Clive is all about that conversation. So yeah, that's him.
Well, good stuff.
So if you ever want to
There
go
you
down
go.
that rabbit hole,
We've
he's your
got
guest.
another guest book for the future.
Yeah, I'll put it on the list there. Darryl,
Yeah.
I'll put it on the list. Now, Darryl, do you want to maybe hook on to Carrie mentioning there about her 18 favorite discs?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've listened to our episodes, Carrie, you know that once we're done giving you the floor, talking about all the different subjects that we can try and grill you on, we like to do a little section at the end that I call Desert Island Discs, or we call Desert Island Discs. I shouldn't take the spotlight on that, but I'll give you the quick setup and I'll give you a chance to think. So I think I'm actually going to change it, Jeremy, because after Tristan's rebuttal last episode, when I said, so the scenario used to be that you're on a ship and you get shipwrecked and you swim to an island, and fortuitously on this island there's an 18-hole disc golf course. Which 3 discs are you taking with you? But the rebuttal that I got from Tristan was that, why am I carrying 3 discs with me on a cruise? So then I said, well, they're your favorite 3 discs, so that's why you're taking them with you. And then he said, but I'm not saving my wife and my son. So we're going off that now. Yeah, way too deep. So
Okay.
we have this island. It has an 18-hole disc golf course on it. Which 3 discs are you taking with you? And primarily it's been putter, mid-range, and driver. We've kind of switched that up again. Take whichever 3 discs that mean the most to you, or that you think that you would get the best benefit out of playing a round of golf with.
And Carrie, if you know Tim Flamondon, just to give you that, we like to hold that as an example. He broke the mold, and it was Firebird, Firefly is what he was taking. So
Yeah.
Okay. Well, oh, this is so hard. Okay. I
We
can't
saved
take
the hard question for the last.
I
And the
can't
other
take
thing is we're really
4.
great at stalling, so we can tell you what ours are if you need more time,
No,
whatever
I
you
know what I
need.
want to take, but I want to take a 4th.
Maybe that's the
Okay.
bag captain. Hey, Darryl.
Am I deserted
Yeah,
with somebody or am I by myself? Because
Good question. Yeah.
that somebody could have the 4th.
There you go. You can take a caddy with you, and the caddy can
Okay.
take the 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would
Special
take
We'll
mention.
bend the rules for you.
I would take an EMAC Judge, a
Okay.
Warship in tournament plastic in like
Okay.
168
Specific.
has to be. Yeah. And then I would probably take like a 159 or to 161 Jade. This would be my
She
3.
knows her discs, Darryl, like even the
Yeah.
weights, right?
Yeah.
And then, well, that's what I throw, right? And then because I'm not allowed to carry it, my caddy would bring a glitch for beach throwing. So when we're just hanging
There you
out,
go.
having a beer, we can
Yeah.
throw a glitch on the beach. Yeah, that's right. Because I love throwing the
Oh.
glitch, but I can't bag one. So
Yeah. I want to be shipwrecked on this island now. Beer and
Yeah.
a glitch.
I'm just assuming there's got to be a tiki hut somewhere, right, with beers.
Yeah, there you go.
Deserted.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know. If someone's
Daryl's
there
gonna have
building
to-
a course, they got to have beer.
Yeah, Darryl might have to make like a short reel or trailer just of what this island looks like to help
Totally.
everybody.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it. I'm
Totally,
gonna have to get Brock helping me with the 16-bit graphics of the island disc row.
That's
I just
awesome.
wanted to touch on something there that you mentioned about because you're specifying weights.
Yes.
And we've mentioned this before, Jeremy, about when we're watching MPO coverage, on the Pro Tour and all that. We're watching MPO because they're entertaining. But really, when we look at their type of game, we're not throwing their type of game. Like our amateur game, we aspire to even get to the FPO level.
Yes.
And I've started to, like in this year journey of, like everybody, you go out and you buy your first discs and all that, and they're super overstable. They're max weight discs and all. You just buy because that's what you've been told. And then you think, oh, I need this disc because I need it to turn left. I need this disc to turn it right, rather than learning how to throw the discs that, make the disc work for you, sort of thing. So recently I've started to buy lightweight discs because I feel that for my arm speed, a lightweight disc is going to work better for me. So it's just interesting to hear that you say that you're, you know exactly which weight that you throw of which disc. So it's a good point to put out there for amateurs that don't always go with the 176, 180 gram disc. There's no shame in coming down to like a 165, 158.
None.
Yeah,
beginner
exactly.
discs. They're not women's discs, they're beginner's discs. But also as we get older, and we don't play every day. We're not touring pros. We're not Owen Scoggins or Jen Allen or Scott Stokley or, Greg Barsby. This isn't our job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have the muscle memory or the work or the power or the snap or the technique that these people have that play 5 days a week. So trying to throw max weight destroyer or a max weight wraith or a max weight raider or an adder or any of that stuff as someone who's only been playing a year is not going to benefit you. You're just going to have bad form because you're going to try so hard to throw it as hard as you can. Just disc down and take the weight down. And as they start to flip and become out of control, take the weight up a bit or disc up in that same weight range. So I always say you've got the diamond, the jade, and the sapphire in latitude. Yep. The sapphire is a beefy freaking disc. My husband throws like a 160 sapphire. It doesn't flip for him at all.
Right.
It's not a beginner disc. It's very for me it's bad marketing. But so if you can throw a 160 sapphire and it's standing up for you on a flip to flat, or it's turning over on a dead flat backhand, keep it in your bag, but disc up to a 168 or a 170 sapphire and see what it does for you. Don't be afraid. And nobody needs speed 13 or speed 12 unless you're like a touring pro throwing all the time, or you're that freaky young person that can throw a mile. Like work on your speed 9s and your speed 10 discs. Make them work for you. Make sure your form stays intact while you're throwing the best that you can, and let the disc work for you. Don't get caught up in flight numbers. Don't, because the flight number is like when they. So I'm sponsored by Westside, so obviously I'm very familiar with what DD is doing with their product line. And when they go out to the driving range next to their building and they throw, it's Eric McCabe, or it used to be Eric Oakley, or it's Matty O that are throwing these discs, Ricky Wysocki. These are the people that are test driving these discs for speed, glide, turnover, and fade. Okay? So Darryl, it's not going to fly the same for you, or Jeremy, it's not going to fly the same for you. So, it's relative to who's throwing it and what their arm speed is, our flight numbers. Just if the disc feels good in your hand, the snap is good, and you can keep your form while you're getting the maximum performance out of your disc, then put it in your bag. Don't bag a Ricky Wysocki felon or whatever it is that you have because Ricky has it and he throws it far. Guaranteed you're not throwing it that far. He's a freak of nature. So is Eagle. Yeah. So is Simon. You know what I mean? Like the time lapse. Yeah. How many people bought time lapses and like broke the bank buying time lapses? Like they're beasts. Yeah, I have one too, but I'm not throwing it. It's up with the very first run of glitches that ever came out from Simon. Yeah. So is the time lapse sitting up there with that, right? So but everybody does it. I did it when I first started playing. I had to have the pink and I had to have the shiny and I had to have the pretty, and it didn't matter what weight it was. And I remember being at a course and someone being like, "What are you doing throwing that? Did your husband give that to you?" I'm like, "No, I bought it because it's nice. Look at it. Yeah. It's like pink and it's got like a rainbow stamp. It's super cool." They're like, "Yeah, but you're not throwing it more than like 80 feet. Like, what are you doing?" So
exactly.
It's, but everybody has to go through it and you got to give it to them. But I think we end up spending way too much money and way too much time fretting when
that's why there's a lot of discs in the back.
Exactly. When, you just got to get in there and don't be afraid to spend an hour in the store walking around. And can you grip it? Does it feel good when you hold it? And your grip doesn't need to be what someone else's grip is either. That's the other thing too, right? Everyone's like, you got to grip it and power grip it and get all your knuckles under. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to grip it like that. Try this. And they're like, whoa. So it's important.
That was one of the tips that we got from Brendan. Was once you find a disc that you like, buy 2 or 3 and beat one in so that it's your understable, but it's the same mold. It's the same feeling. You know that disc you're throwing every time. So we're not just a podcast about Canadian disc golf, Jeremy. We're covering discs and everything here.
I got 2 warships, 4 judges, all at different stages of being beat in. I got like 3 or 4 jades. I got a sapphire, 2 sapphires. Like the discs that I throw, diamonds, I think I have 3 or 4 diamonds in my bag, all different weights, different plastics. They all do different things. So when I find a disc I like that feels good in the hand, I play with the weight and the plastic. So, yeah.
Good tips.
Jeremy, that's the second time that somebody's recommended the Warship on their Desert Island discs.
Friend of the show. Warship. That was Kristen, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay, it was Kristen. Yeah, absolutely.
Right there.
I've got
Are you throwing that?
Jeremy.
I just got it as part of Gander's. Unfortunate with Gander selling discs and that, but I was able to pick one up from Calvin there. So I've had a couple chances to throw it, but not enough to really get a good feel for it yet. But I did like my first few throws.
The ones that came in the Trilogy Challenge last year, the Matty O Warship, they're a little more overstable. So you can pop them with a little bit of Anheuser and I love the Warship. I throw the EMAC Truth and the Warship. Those are my mid-ranges. And this is a little longer and glidier than the Truth. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Carrie, we've had you on and we're so happy. And I'm sure Darryl can say it. We could have you on for another hour easy, but we should start to wrap it up. But before we do, we want to give you a chance. Is there anything else that you want to shout out or talk about or sponsors you had mentioned as well? So
Yeah, I'm sponsored by Westside Discs, so big shout out to them. Um, uh, Talked about jerseys and stuff like that. I'm at Top Link, here for any tournament director that needs a hand, wondering what to do with player packs or clubs that are looking for jerseys. I'll help you out. TCO, the BC Women's Series. Check them out. It's on Disc Golf Scene. It's a fantastic series of C tiers with a B tier culminating at Raptors Knoll in September. Falcons Flight, that's coming. Got to give them a shout out for sure. Team's working hard this year, of course, to knock it out of the park again. And just want to shout out my buddy down the road, Dennis Grefford, who's running Canadians in September.
Yes.
It's going to be great. If you guys aren't planning on it, be hot to the keyboard. March 15th, registration opens. It's going to be a good time.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Darryl, you got anything else before we
shout out you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Another Canadian podcast. It's awesome.
There we go. We're filling a space, I think.
Darryl doesn't take compliments well, but I'll take it. Thank you very much, Carrie. We appreciate it.
You're not filling a space, Darryl. You're creating content. It's awesome. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much, Carrie. We appreciate it. Have a great night, and we will maybe we will see you at Nationals, maybe TCO. We'll see what we can get into our schedule.
Awesome. Yeah. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Wow. Can we take a break? Can we take a breather for a second, Jeremy?
Oh, you know what, Darryl? We can take a breather for a second, but wow. I think I said wow how many times during that interview?
Yeah. And I think, probably when I listen back to this and edit it, I'll realize how much I didn't talk. But it's not because I never had anything to say. It's because I was just fixated on listening to the stories. I could listen to more of them.
Yes. Oh, that was it. It was like, and that's why I was keeping them written down when she was saying, and she was like, okay. And then and I'm like, don't forget about the story about Sarah Hokom, because it's like, I wanted to hear every one of those stories.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. When was the last time we had a guest on? Probably we haven't yet, but it's like, oh yeah, when I was talking to Thomas and just seeing if he needed a room, a place to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. We get all giddy when he says hi to us on an Instagram live.
Yeah, exactly.
Or he likes our comment. Yeah.
And Carrie's just like, he stays with me.
Yeah, no, that was a really awesome guest. Just to hear, we had 24 years of disc golf knowledge to get through, right? It was so awesome to hear how it all started, what it was like in the beginning, how she got into disc golf, how she got into TD and all the events, just how she's grown the sport. I'm going to say it,
Yes,
how she's
been instrumental in the growth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too,
it speaks volumes when you hear somebody in the States and they say, oh, disc golf in Canada, and they mention her name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that, as much as we got to chance to talk with Carrie, and this is going to be for sure our longest episode, I still think we were just scratching the surface of the information we could have talked to with her. Like, she could be a once a month guest in my mind, but I'm just so happy that we had her, and I hope everybody enjoys this episode. And thank you so much, Carrie, for coming on. Like, we really appreciate it. And, check out the TCO if it can fit into your tournament schedule. Get out there. I had a great time last year. Listen to her podcast as well. She's talking to pros. She's getting to those places that we dream of getting to with our podcast. So you can maybe get a sneak preview of what it'll be like for chainout in a few more years, or however it goes.
Exactly. Yeah. No, very awesome guest. I don't want to keep saying it. The guests keep getting better.
Yeah. Well, you say it and it just keeps happening. So let's keep that mojo going in the right direction. So let's wrap this one up relatively quickly. I'll do a quick Winter League update. So Winter League, the last round that we played was over at Hermitage. And Steve Newman and Dylan Froelich, two names that I know you're familiar with, they were on my card with me, as well as Jody was on my card, Jason, and then Kevin joined as well. And Steve and Dylan both put down the high score. They tied.
Yeah, the low score.
The low score, the top score of the weekend for the league. And that score was -8. So there's only one thing I have to say.
I know somebody else who Yeah, I know somebody else who got a -8 at Hermitage as well.
Yeah, so once they had tapped out and they told us the scores, I looked over at Uncle Steve and I looked over at Dylan and I said, "Good job, guys. Welcome to the club."
That's awesome. Yeah.
So not only am I the president, I'm a member, but now I've got some other members as
Yeah.
well. So, uh,
That's awesome.
but another shout out I wanted to say too, Darryl, was that Jody was on our card as well. And she
Hmm.
ended up having a lights out round for her game. And she ended up had her course best. And part of
Nice.
that, like the joy on her face, she put down multiple pars in a row. She ended up with 6 pars for the day. And it was just amazing. It's that feeling that, yeah, you've got Dylan and Steve shooting the -8, shooting the best round, but you got Jody shooting the best round for her, and just the,
Yeah.
celebrating that with her and all of those pars in a row and her excitement. That was that was awesome. I really enjoyed it. So great job on your round there too, Jody.
Yep. Good job, Jody. Yeah, it's that feeling, right? We all wish it every round. And yeah, it doesn't need to be a -8. It doesn't need to be a course record. It's just anything that's good for you, right? A personal best for you on a course. It just gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, and that's what we're all about.
Definitely. And then I would give you a putting league update usually at this point, because we record the day after putting league, but because of Valentine's Day, putting league was moved to the same night as recording. So I don't have an update, but we will put one back in next week as well. So
You got your priorities straight, Jeremy. I like it.
yeah, well, like we said, and I'm going to say it again, when a legend wants to come on to the podcast, you're going
Yeah,
to make time to talk to the legend. So,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a legend, but
well,
oh, you meant Carrie. Okay,
yes.
sorry. Yeah, no, absolutely, Carrie. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that was a good episode. I don't think we got anything else to talk about, do we? Oh,
No.
one thing I did want to mention.
Hmm.
We were talking about TCO and um, Mac Island and Logan Park being part of the event there.
Yeah, Logan Lake,
But what
yeah.
I did want Logan Park. What I did want to say is that if you like Carrie was saying, that in the downtime, if you do go to that event, you can always drive up to Rose Hill.
Mm-hmm.
One hole to look out for is hole number 2, because that's what the famous Pyramid Island, or the Pyramid Green.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's got actually the stacked basket. It's like a pyramid on, I think it's hole 2. Yeah.
Yeah, and seeing as we've mentioned it a few times now, and you've got that nice looking warship behind you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If the weather the weather's right, the conditions are perfect, you're all loosened up from your first round of play that day, maybe you could stand on that tee. Maybe you could launch that warship. Just a little bit of overstability. And you know what it would do? It would glide through the air. But there's one thing it's never going to do. It's never in this world, because it's a warship.
Yeah, it couldn't do it.
It would never. You know what it would never do?
I think I know what it would never do. It would
Hey,
never.
golf giver.
Chain
out!
Thanks a lot, everyone. Catch you next time.
Thanks. Have a good one.